Hi, I'm Mary. I'm working with my husband Samuel at his family's small business. The business, run by my father-in-law Liam, has about 6 employees. Liam is quiet and doesn't get involved much in day-to-day tasks. Instead, Samuel, who will likely be the next president, is very dedicated and works hard with clients and new projects. Everyone comes together for big projects, creating a lively and energetic atmosphere. I've been a part of this for 8 years since marrying Samuel. Recently, my mother-in-law Amanda has expressed some concerns about me being involved. When I came home early to make dinner while Samuel worked late, Amanda confronted me, saying, "How long are you going to stay in our family business?" It seemed like she was more focused on criticizing me than enjoying her retirement. In response, I kept calm and asked, "What do you mean by clinging?" Amanda jumped in, suggesting that my marriage to Samuel was just a way for me to get a job at their company and that I was taking advantage of it. This wasn't the first time she had made such accusations, and it was becoming a regular issue. When I married Samuel, I chose to leave my old job and join his family's business because I wanted to, not because I had no other options, as Amanda seemed to think. I tried to explain, "Mom, it's not that I couldn't work elsewhere. I chose to be here." But she didn't seem to understand and continued to believe her own assumptions about my reasons. The tension with Amanda went beyond just words. Even though she had promised to manage the household after retiring, she didn't help out much. Instead, she insisted, "I've worked all my life. Now it's the daughter-in-law's turn to handle the household duties." So I often ended up managing dinner and cleanup. One afternoon, I mustered up the courage to talk to Amanda about a problem that had been bothering me. "Amanda," I started carefully, "I've noticed that there are often dirty dishes left in the sink. It would really help if you could clean up after yourself." Instead of responding calmly, Amanda reacted angrily. She accused me of overstepping my role as a daughter-in-law and trying to impose rules in her home. I was worried about dinner getting delayed because of this argument, so I tried to stay calm and suggested, "Mom, let's talk about this later. I need to start preparing dinner." Amanda agreed and went to the living room, leaving me to focus on getting the meal ready. Both Liam and Samuel had seen Amanda's harsh treatment of me and tried to step in when they could, but their efforts often seemed to have little effect. When they spoke up, it usually only made Amanda more upset with me. Despite their concern and attempts to help, Amanda's words were still painful. While I never faced physical violence, the emotional hurt was significant. Liam and Samuel's support was crucial in helping me cope with Amanda's harsh remarks, but it was especially tested on one tough morning. After cleaning up from breakfast and getting ready to leave for work, Amanda suddenly shouted, "Oh my, what a mess. A trash heap here." And without any warning, she threw a bucket of water on my handbag. I was stunned, feeling a mix of shock and anger. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. Amanda's response was dismissive and childish. "Oh, was that your stuff? I thought it was just a big piece of trash." Her careless attitude only made me more upset. "Even if you thought it was trash, who pours water on it?" I asked, struggling to understand her lack of concern. As I sat across from Amanda in the morning light, she looked cold and determined, as if she had made up her mind to take a drastic step. "What kind of reasoning is that? Now the carpet is soaked, and what about the vacuum cleaner?" I said, frustrated and confused, as I tried to dry my important work documents. Amanda, with a chilling indifference, said, "You don't need to go to work anymore." I was completely bewildered. "Excuse me?" I replied, stunned and in disbelief. Amanda's next words felt like a sharp blow to my heart. "You've been clinging to this house for 8 years, but today I can finally get rid of you." Her voice was filled with anger and determination I had never seen from her before. I was overwhelmed with sadness and confusion. "Getting rid of me?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "She made me feel like a complete outsider in this family. My daughter is joining the company, so you need to leave. Today is your last day. Just bow your head to your father-in-law and Samuel and apologize for all the trouble you've caused." Her mocking laughter only deepened my hurt. She was using my job to force me out. I had dedicated years to this role, building respect and creating memories. I was shocked and heartbroken, struggling to understand how my sacrifices seemed so meaningless to her. "Are you sure about this? Wasn't Emma working in a clothing store in Philadelphia?" I asked, confused and worried. My job was more than just a paycheck. It was important to me. Meanwhile, Emma, my sister-in-law, was apparently tired of city life and wanted to return. She said she was tired of dealing with the cold people in Philadelphia, so I promised her a job when she came back, Amanda said with finality. "She's coming back immediately, and now that she is, I want you out of this house." Her words hit me like a freezing gust of wind. With one sweeping decision, she was appending my life and dismissing my role in the family without any chance for discussion. She handed me an envelope. "I've written your resignation letter," she said, effectively banishing me from our home. In that moment, my heart felt completely shattered. All my years of hard work and dedication seemed to be dismissed as if they were nothing but scraps of paper. Amanda's actions had ripped apart the fabric of our family bond, leaving it deeply scarred. With a heavy heart, I walked the short 5 minutes to the company, a route I had traveled many times before, but never with such a swirl of emotions. Each step under the cool morning sky felt heavy with the weight of the situation. When I arrived at the office, I told my father-in-law, Liam, and my husband, Samuel, about Amanda's harsh decision. They looked shocked and restrained, but they managed to stay calm despite the chaos. They suggested that maybe stepping away for a while could show Amanda the real impact of her demands. This idea sent my heart into even more turmoil. After working so hard for the family business for years, the thought of taking a break longer than the short Thanksgiving or Christmas holidays felt overwhelming and strange. Encouraged by Samuel and Liam's supportive advice, "Why don't you spread your wings for a change?" I decided to take a short trip. As I packed, I reflected on my life, the choices I had made, and what the future might hold. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, Emma, who was supposed to replace me at the company, arrived unexpectedly late at 2 p.m. Her careless attitude left Samuel and Liam frustrated and confused. Despite their attempts to help her understand the business, Emma seemed uninterested. Hearing this made me anxious about the company's future, even as I looked forward to my trip. I left without another word to Amanda and quickly set off. As the train moved, I looked out at the changing scenery, using the time to think about my past and future. The trip gave me a chance to take a break and reflect. While enjoying local seafood specialties, I often thought about my family and the business. On the 5th day of my getaway, my peaceful time was suddenly interrupted by a tearful call from Emma. "What's going on?" Mom said it was an easy job, just sitting in a chair, but Samuel and Dad are acting like I can't do anything right, Emma complained. Her words mirrored what my mother-in-law had probably told her, and I was taken aback. Even though I was enjoying a more relaxed pace during my trip, I knew it was time to help Emma face reality. "So Emma, how good are you with computers?" I asked, sensing her hesitation. "Well, I usually watch videos online and play games too," she replied. Her answer suggested she wasn't very skilled with computers. I asked her if she knew how to use software tools like Word or Excel. Her confused response surprised me, especially since she had worked in the Philadelphia apparel industry, where tasks like tracking sales and managing inventory would have required basic computer skills. "Can you handle calculations for sales or fill out documents?" I asked. She confidently said she could do those tasks. However, when I asked, "Can you calculate the right amount of tax?" her confidence wavered, and she answered uncertainly. This wasn't just about her math skills, but about her ability to apply them in a real business setting. While Emma might have other talents, it was clear that she wasn't sure about the skills needed for the job. Her discomfort with calculations seemed to be a big part of why Liam and Samuel were criticizing her. "It's crucial to confront the motives of my mother-in-law and her supporters who want to push me out," I said. "Since you're taking over my role, I expect you to manage the accounting tasks properly. Remember that email etiquette is important. A casual tone might work with friends, but it's not suitable for business communications. Also, you'll be responsible for scheduling staff shifts. Our team is small, but we take everyone's requests for time off seriously, so make sure not to prioritize your convenience over theirs." I advised her firmly, continuing to outline her responsibilities. I could hear Emma sobbing on the other end of the line. It was a tough conversation, but it was necessary for her to understand the reality and expectations of the role she was stepping into. Emma abruptly ended the call, clearly overwhelmed by the tasks at hand. Over the next 4 days, I took the opportunity to explore Philadelphia, the very place Emma had left. Surprisingly, I found the people there warmer than expected, which was a stark contrast to the cold-hearted nature of my mother-in-law, Amanda, and Emma, who seemed determined to push me out. A week after leaving my job, I returned to my in-laws' house. As soon as I arrived, Amanda confronted me, her face red with fury. "How dare you make my daughter cry? You won't get away with this." Amanda yelled, her eyes filled with anger and confusion. Before she could reach me, Samuel and Liam stepped in, trying to calm her down. Despite their efforts, Amanda's anger showed no signs of easing. Samuel explained calmly but firmly, "Emma is upset because she was scolded for trying to boss around her employees, even though she doesn't know how to do the job properly. It's not Mary's fault. Besides, Mary hasn't been here for a week, so she couldn't have upset Emma." Amanda shot back emotionally, "It's because of her. This woman is the reason for Emma's troubles. She accused me without any real basis." "Where is Emma, by the way?" I asked, looking around the room. She was nowhere to be found, adding to the mystery. "It's odd. Emma has nowhere else to go since she gave up her apartment in Philadelphia. I assumed she'd be here," I said, puzzled. Samuel then shared, "Emma's locked herself in her room. She's been crying and doesn't want to go to work anymore. She's overwhelmed because she doesn't have the skills needed for the job." Amanda was still upset and accused, "You've been turning Samuel and Liam against me. They wouldn't say the company is doing better with you instead of Emma unless you made them think badly about her." Samuel sighed deeply, clearly tired of the family drama and his failed attempts to clear things up. "Mom," he started again, trying to explain, "it might sound unusual, but Mary is really good at her job. She's certified in bookkeeping, she's great at secretarial work, and she even studied Spanish abroad. She manages all the multilingual communications at the company." He said this proudly. Amanda looked surprised, obviously not knowing about my qualifications and what I had done. "That sounds like something from a TV show," she mumbled. Thinking back, I shared that in college I was so focused on getting various certifications and studying that I barely had time for social activities or romance. It was during this time that I met Samuel when he visited my company for business. I found myself telling the story of how we first met, hoping to clear up misunderstandings and show the reality of our lives. However, I realized Amanda wasn't interested in hearing about my qualifications or past achievements, so I steered the conversation back to the current situation. In short, I took care of many different tasks at the company, like accounting, scheduling, talking with other companies, and managing employee shifts, I explained, describing my wide range of responsibilities. Samuel added, "The work environment has been much better since you became less involved, Mom." Amanda was visibly surprised by his comment. At that moment, Liam, Samuel's father, chimed in with unexpected news. "We're thinking about closing the company soon. Emma made a big mistake. Instead of preparing some important documents, she decided to answer phone calls because she thought it would be more fun. While we were away, she was rude to an important contact from another company, which could cause serious problems." I was shocked and covered my mouth with my hand. "I can't believe Emma would do something like that," I murmured, feeling disbelief and fear about how her actions could potentially ruin the company. While I was worrying about everything that was happening, the situation took another unexpected turn. When I explained our situation to the president of the other company, he suggested it might be time to think about merging our companies. He was interested in taking over our family business. Liam continued, "This was unexpected but hopeful news. A merger could help stabilize our customer base, which Samuel has been working hard to achieve through his efforts in sales." This news was a relief to Samuel and Liam, but not to Amanda. She suddenly objected, "That's not acceptable. Samuel should become the president. This is our company, isn't it? He shouldn't just be an employee." Amanda exclaimed passionately, unable to accept losing the prestige of owning a company. Her outburst caught Emma's attention, and she came downstairs to see what was going on. Amid the chaos, Liam spoke up with a calm but firm tone, "I am divorcing you. You've not only resisted change and neglected your responsibilities at home and with the family, but I've also found out about your affairs with younger men. I can't support this behavior any longer." This announcement shocked everyone, especially Samuel and me. Liam then took some divorce papers and a photo of Amanda with a young man from a shelf in the living room and placed them on the table. "If you look at these divorce papers now and pack up your things, I won't ask for alimony. Trying to get money from you would be pointless," he said firmly. "How can you say that? Haven't I dedicated myself to this house all these years?" Amanda protested. "Have you done any real housework in the last 8 years? Spending someone else's money on young men doesn't count as devotion to this house," Liam replied, sounding more frustrated than we'd ever heard him. This was the first time we saw this stern side of Liam, who was usually mild-mannered, as he addressed the deep-seated issues in the family. In the middle of all this family drama, seeing Liam, usually so calm and controlled, looking visibly upset was a shock to everyone, especially Emma, who had just walked into the room. She shook slightly, clearly shocked and scared. "Emma, this affects you too," Liam said firmly. "You came back because you couldn't make it on your own in Philadelphia. Now you can't even find a job here, and you act like you're better than everyone else. You've stopped trying to work altogether and seem to be avoiding responsibility. It's time for you to leave this house as well." Emma was stunned, her face showing confusion and denial. "Wait a minute, Dad. Even if Mom has her problems, I'm still your daughter, right?" she protested, desperately trying to hold on to her place in the family. Amanda, feeling hurt by her daughter's words, asked in shock, "Are you betraying me now, Emma?" Her voice was filled with hurt and disbelief. As things got more heated, Liam quickly stepped in to prevent more arguments. "To avoid more trouble, I've arranged for both of you to stay with someone I know until you get back on your feet. They'll be here soon to pick you up, so please pack your essential things," he said firmly, making it clear there was no room for discussion. With heavy hearts and no other options, Amanda and Emma packed up their belongings. Soon after, Liam's acquaintance, who managed a factory with living quarters, arrived to take them to their temporary home. Meanwhile, Samuel, Liam, and I used this time to inform our employees about the upcoming merger with a larger company, preparing them for the changes and challenges ahead. During these big changes, I found out I was pregnant. I shared the happy news with the president of the company acquiring ours. He was excited and promised to find a suitable replacement for my position to ensure a smooth transition. With the promise of new opportunities and the excitement of our growing family, Samuel and Liam threw themselves into their work even more, motivated by the bright future that lay ahead.
I never meant to build an empire. It started as a way to cope with loneliness when my husband Michael's 80-hour work weeks as a corporate lawyer left me alone in our two-big house in Boston's affluent Beacon Hill neighborhood. What began with handmade jewelry sold on Etsy transformed into something none of them saw coming, especially not my mother-in-law, Patricia Wellington, who never missed an opportunity to remind me that I was beneath her precious son. "Another craft fair, dear?" she would say at our monthly family dinners, her voice dripping with condescension. How quaint. If only she knew that my little craft business had just shipped its millionth order last week. If only my husband knew that while he was billing $800 an hour to make partner, I was building a brand that would soon be worth more than his entire law firm. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Emily Chen Wellington, and 5 years ago, I was just a graphic designer who fell in love with a lawyer from an old-money Boston family. The Wellingtons traced their lineage back to the Mayflower and never let anyone forget it. When Michael proposed, his mother took me aside and said, "At least you're Chinese. That's almost acceptable these days. Your children will be good at math." I should have run then. Instead, I smiled and endured like I had been taught. Like my immigrant parents had done when they first came to America. Keep your head down, work hard, and success will follow. The idea for Lux Craft started during those lonely nights. I combined my graphic design skills with traditional Chinese craft techniques my grandmother had taught me, creating modern jewelry with an Asian fusion twist. My first piece, a delicate jade pendant wrapped in silver wire with a contemporary geometric design, sold within hours of listing it on Etsy. "That's nice, honey," Michael said when I told him, barely looking up from his case files. "But maybe focus on redecorating the house." The partners are coming for dinner next month. I did focus on the house by converting our 3-car garage into a studio. While Michael climbed the corporate ladder and Patricia planned charity galas, I was building something revolutionary. My designs caught the attention of fashion bloggers, then magazines, then celebrities. Orders poured in faster than I could fulfill them. I hired other immigrant women from my mother's church to help with production. Many of them, like Mrs. Zhang and Mrs. Kim, had been engineers and artists in their home countries, but couldn't find work in America. Together, we created a production system that maintained handcrafted quality while scaling up operations. I took online business courses at night, learning about supply chains, marketing, and e-commerce. My little Etsy shop evolved into luxcraft.com. We expanded from jewelry to handbags, then to home decor. Each piece told a story, blending Eastern craftsmanship with Western design. Our waiting lists grew longer. Venture capitalists started calling. But at home, nothing changed. Michael was too busy to notice that I'd stopped using his credit cards. Patricia still introduced me at parties as Michael's wife who does crafts. My father-in-law, Judge Wellington, still called me the artist in that tone that made it sound like a mental condition. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Patricia had organized a special family gathering at her Beacon Hill mansion. All the Wellingtons would be there, including Michael's siblings with their properly employed spouses, doctors, lawyers, and investment bankers all. I arrived late because we had just closed a deal to supply our products to a major luxury department store chain. Michael was already there, deep in conversation with his brother about their latest cases. "Emily, darling, we were just talking about you," Patricia called out as I entered the formal dining room. 20 pairs of Wellington eyes turned to me. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when discussing the help. "Patricia was telling us about your little online shop," Michael's sister-in-law Amanda said, adjusting her Hermes scarf. "How enterprising of you." I took my seat, noticing the subtle way Patricia had arranged the table, placing me at the far end, away from the important conversations. The catering staff served the first course. Imported caviar on mother-of-pearl spoons. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. Another message from the Amazon acquisition team could wait. "You know," Patricia announced, tapping her crystal glass for attention, "I've been thinking about what's best for the Wellington name. Michael's making partner this year, finally entering the family tradition of real achievement. Michael beamed. I took a sip of wine. Which is why, she continued, fixing me with her society smile, we need to discuss Emily's hobby. The word hung in the air like a poisoned arrow. I felt my cheeks flush as Patricia launched into her carefully prepared speech. A Wellington spouse has certain obligations, certain standards to uphold. We're not ordinary people who need to sell trinkets online. Michael, darling, don't you think it's time Emily focused on more appropriate activities? The hospital board has an opening. My phone buzzed again. And again, and again. Mother's right, Michael said, loosening his Hermes tie. I make more than enough for both of us. This crafts thing. It's a bit embarrassing at this level of society. The buzzing wouldn't stop. As the Wellingtons nodded in collective agreement about my social failings, I finally pulled out my phone. 10 missed calls from my lawyer, 5 from my investment banker, and 1 message that would wipe those condescending smiles off every Wellington face. URGENT, Amazon final offer, $80 million cash plus stock. Need answer tonight. I looked up from my phone to see Patricia frowning at my breach of dinner etiquette. If only she knew what was coming. As Patricia continued her lecture about appropriate activities for a Wellington spouse, I felt a strange calm settle over me. 5 years of condescension, of being treated like a charity case who got lucky enough to marry into their precious family, it was about to end. Emily, are you even listening? Patricia's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. This is important. The Wellington name. Will be just fine, I interrupted, standing up. Every head at the table turned. I had never interrupted Patricia before. In fact, I'd say it's about to become much more valuable. Michael frowned. Emily, don't be dramatic. Mother's only trying to help. Actually, I said, my voice steady. I have an announcement of my own. I turned to face Patricia directly. You're right. It's time to discuss my little hobby. I pulled up the email on my phone and began reading. Dear Mrs. Chen Wellington, following our final evaluation, Amazon is pleased to present our best and final offer for the acquisition of Lux Craft Incorporated. $80 million in cash, plus $20 million in Amazon stock options, with a 3-year earnout potential of an additional $50 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's fork clattered onto his $400 dinner plate. That's impossible. Patricia whispered, her face pale. Your little online craft shop generated $42 million in revenue last year. I continued, warming to my task. We have partnerships with Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, and Neiman Marcus. Our waiting list for custom pieces is 6 months long. Oh, and that charitable donation you were bragging about earlier, Patricia? The one where you gave $50,000 to the Asian American Arts Foundation. That was actually from me. I'm the largest anonymous donor. Judge Wellington's bushy eyebrows shot up. You're saying your craft business is worth $100 million? No, I smiled, checking my phone again. According to this new message, Google just countered Amazon's offer. Now it's worth $120 million. Michael stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. But I'm the breadwinner. I make 7 figures. And I make that in a month, I replied calmly. Those nights you thought I was playing with beads, I was building an empire. While you were billing hours, I created jobs for over 200 women, mostly immigrants who couldn't get proper jobs despite having advanced degrees. Amanda's Hermes scarf suddenly looked a bit tight around her neck. But you never said anything. Would you have believed me? I asked, looking around the table. Would any of you have taken me seriously? You were all so convinced that making partner at a law firm was the height of achievement. Patricia had recovered enough to attempt damage control. Well, this is wonderful news. I always said Emily had potential. No, I cut her off again. You always said I was embarrassing, that I was beneath your son, that my little hobby was a shame to the Wellington name. I turned to my husband. And you, Michael? When was the last time you asked me about my work? When was the last time you came to see what I was building in that garage you complained about me wasting? The room spun with tension as years of unspoken resentment finally found voice. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out one more piece of paper from my purse. Something I'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. There's one more thing, I said, sliding the document across the table to Michael. I've been so busy with the acquisition negotiations, I almost forgot to mention it. These came from my lawyer last week. Michael picked up the papers, his hands trembling slightly. His face went from red to white as he read the title. Petition for divorce. But why? He stammered. We can work this out, now that I know about the money. That's exactly why, I replied, gathering my things. 5 years, Michael. 5 years of dismissing me, belittling my work, treating me like a charity case. 5 years of watching your mother tear me down while you smiled and nodded. The money isn't why I'm leaving. It's just what finally gave me the courage to do it. I turned to address the entire stunned table. Oh, and Patricia, remember last month when you said the Wellingtons only wear real jewelry, not craft fair trinkets? That necklace you're wearing, the one you bragged about buying at Tiffany's, it's one of mine. Tiffany's is our biggest wholesale client. Patricia's hand flew to her throat, touching the $12,000 necklace she'd shown off all evening. I could practically see her mentally reviewing all the compliments she'd received on her exquisite taste. As I walked toward the door, Judge Wellington finally found his voice. Now see here, young lady, you can't just. Actually, I can, I said, pausing at the threshold. And one more thing, Michael, remember how you always insisted I sign a prenup to protect the Wellington family fortune? You might want to read Clause 7.3. The one about how all business assets developed during the marriage are considered joint property unless specifically excluded. Michael's face went from white to green. I smiled. Don't worry, I'm not interested in your law firm partnership, but I thought you should know, technically you own half of my company. Well, you did. I sold your shares to my employees last week for $1. They earned it. The explosion of voices behind me as I walked out was music to my ears. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of their education about underestimating the wrong person. The media explosion hit the next morning. Immigrant woman's craft business sells for $120 million made headlines across every major business publication. My phone rang nonstop with journalists wanting to know how a simple crafter had built such an empire right under Boston society's nose. But the real drama was unfolding in the Wellington family group chat, which I hadn't yet been removed from. Patricia, she's ruined us. Everyone at the club is talking. Amanda, my friends are asking if I can introduce them to Emily for business advice. Michael, mother, please calm down. My colleagues are congratulating me on my entrepreneurial wife. Judge Wellington, some yuani xplane how we mesmerized. I smiled, switching off my phone as I walked into Luxcraft's headquarters, a renovated textile mill in Cambridge that employed over 200 people, mostly immigrant women like my mother. Mrs. Zhang, my first hire and now chief operating officer, met me at the door. The acquisition team from Google is here, she said with a knowing smile, and you won't believe who else is in the lobby. I rounded the corner to find Patricia Wellington pacing nervously, clutching her Luxcraft necklace. She froze when she saw me. Emily dear, she began, her society smile strained. I've been doing some thinking about last night. Mrs. Wellington, I interrupted politely, you'll need to schedule an appointment with my assistant. I have a meeting with Google's executive team right now. But we're family, she protested. Are we? I raised an eyebrow. Last night you made it very clear that I wasn't Wellington material. Now, if you'll excuse me. I walked past her into our main conference room, where Google's top brass waited. Through the glass walls, I watched Patricia's face as she realized that the craft hobby she dismissed was being courted by tech giants. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Google's offer beat Amazon's, closing at $150 million with the earnout potential. The story went viral. Immigrant woman builds $1 million empire while her blue blood in-laws mock her hobby. Every major network wanted an interview. Michael's law firm colleagues started referring their wives to Luxcraft for trunk shows. The same society women who had snubbed me at Patricia's parties now called daily, hoping to invest in my next venture. But the sweetest moment came during the acquisition closing dinner. Google had rented out the same exclusive restaurant where the Wellingtons had once made me feel like an outsider. As I stood to give my speech, I saw Michael and his family slinking in through the side door. They'd obviously pulled strings to be there. 5 years ago, someone told me that craft fairs weren't appropriate for certain levels of society. that immigrant women should know their place, that success meant following traditional paths. Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. But my mother taught me something different, she said. Success isn't about fitting into someone else's world, it's about building your own. I gestured to the immigrant women who now held executive positions at Luxcraft. Together, we didn't just build a company, we built a community. We proved that craft fairs can become empires, that hobbies can change lives, and that sometimes the people who dismiss you are the ones who end up watching you soar. The room erupted in applause. From the corner of my eye, I saw Patricia dab at tears, while Michael stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. After the dinner, Mrs. John approached me with news that made my victory complete. Our immigrant employment program had been selected for a prestigious innovation award. The presenter? The Wellington Foundation for Social Progress. Patricia's pet project. They'll have to give an award to the very people they look down on. Mrs. John laughed. Karma is real. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Michael tried everything to win me back, suddenly fascinated by my entrepreneurial spirit. But as I told the divorce court, some bridges can't be unburned. I bought a penthouse in Back Bay, right next door to Patricia's beloved social club. Every morning, I watch her society friends line up at the Luxcraft flagship store across the street, bragging about their personal connection to the founder. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at Michael's law firm's Women's Leadership Conference. The topic? Breaking through. How to succeed when others doubt you. I declined. I was too busy launching our new foundation, which provides seed funding to immigrant women entrepreneurs. The final twist of the knife came yesterday. Patricia's Country Club, the one that had taken decades for the Wellingtons to get into, invited me to join as an honorary member. I accepted, with one condition, that they also offer membership to Mrs. Zhang and our other immigrant executives. But that's not how things are done. The membership committee sputtered. Then perhaps it's time things changed, I replied. They agreed. This morning I had coffee at the club, sitting at the best table, the one Patricia had always claimed as her territory. As I sipped my latte, I opened an email from a young immigrant woman who'd read about my story. You showed me that our dreams don't have to fit into someone else's box, that we can build our own tables when they won't give us a seat at theirs. Thank you for proving them wrong. I looked around the club, at the society women who now competed for my attention, at the old money that now eagerly sought new ideas. Patricia was there too, sitting in a corner, watching as her former social circle gravitated toward my table. She caught my eye and gave a small, defeated nod. Finally, she understood. The very things they had mocked, my heritage, my creativity, my little hobby, had become their obsession. I nodded back, then returned to my coffee. Success, after all, is the best revenge. But changing the game? That's priceless. My phone buzzed. Another interview request, this time from Forbes. They wanted to feature me in their Self-Made Women issue. The suggested title made me smile. The Craft Queen of Boston. How an immigrant's hobby disrupted high society and built a $150 million empire. Sometimes I thought, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so high that they have to look up to see you. And sometimes, the people who dismiss your dreams end up having to watch them come true. From a distance, through the windows of the empire they never believed you could build.
My name is Layla, a 28-year-old housewife. My husband, Tom, works for a company, and we recently welcomed our long-awaited child, a beautiful baby girl named Elena. Our little family of 3 feels complete. Elena is so adorable that I could spend hours just staring at her. She looks just like you did when you were little, Layla, my mom often says. Seeing Elena brings back so many memories for her. Today, I invited my parents over to meet Elena for the first time. Tom, have your parents met her yet? I asked during breakfast. Tom hesitated before replying, no, they haven't. My parents aren't fond of children. They only had me because of societal expectations, and they made it clear they didn't want more kids. They're not interested in meeting Elena either. When I told them about her, they said not to bring her until she's an adult. Can you believe that? I was stunned. That's hard to imagine. I've met your parents a few times, and they didn't seem like the type. Is it really possible to dislike children so much that they wouldn't want to see their own grandchild? I'll send them a picture, Tom said, sighing. Maybe it'll change their minds. I'll keep trying to convince them to meet her. True to his word, Tom sent his parents a photo of Elena, but their response was lukewarm at best. As the months passed, Tom's efforts to persuade them continued, with little success. It's been almost 10 months since Elena was born, I said one evening. Have your parents changed their minds? Tom shook his head sadly. No, they're still against meeting her. I've tried everything, but they won't reconsider. I feel like a terrible dad for not being able to bring my parents around. I took his hand in mine. Tom, you're not a bad dad. Elena and I see how hard you're trying, and we love you for it, right, Elena? I smiled at our baby, who was peacefully napping in her crib. Thanks, Layla, he said, his voice soft. I'll keep trying. While I admired Tom's persistence, I was growing tired of trying to cheer him up. If his parents didn't want to meet Elena, I was ready to accept it and move on, but I didn't have the heart to say that out loud, knowing how much it mattered to him. And what if Elena asked one day why she never met her grandparents? How could I explain their indifference to her? As Elena's first birthday approached, something unexpected happened, a phone call from my in-laws. Layla, it's been a while, Tom's mother began. Yes, it has. How are you? I replied cautiously. We're well. How is the baby? She asked. Her sudden interest in Elena caught me off guard. She's doing great, I said. Layla, did we do something to upset you? She asked hesitantly. No, not at all, I replied, confused. Other than not wanting to meet your granddaughter, everything has been fine. Then why haven't you let us meet her? She asked, her voice breaking. If it's hard for you to come here, we can come to you, or we can meet somewhere neutral, like a restaurant. Please, just let us see her, even if it's only once. I was shocked. You're saying, you want to meet her? Of course we do, she said, her voice trembling. Your father and I have been waiting to meet our first grandchild. We'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. Please, Layla. Her words left me speechless. Hadn't Tom told me they didn't want to meet Elena? I explained what Tom had said to me, and my mother-in-law sounded equally surprised. Just then, my mom, who was helping with Elena, overheard the conversation and suggested I hand her the phone. Hello, this is Layla's mom. It's been a while, she said warmly. As the two mothers began talking, Elena started crying. I held her close, my mind spinning with questions. Why had Tom told me they didn't want to meet Elena? And how would this revelation change things for our family? As Elena began to cry, I stepped away to comfort her. When I returned, it seemed like the moms, my mother and mother-in-law, had reached some sort of agreement. They told me they had come up with a plan but insisted I keep it a secret from Tom until everything was carried out. A few days later, on Tom's day off, my parents came over for a small family get-together. Elena just keeps getting cuter, doesn't she? My mom said, smiling as Elena babbled away. She's getting so good at talking too, my dad added. She's so smart, I agreed, holding Elena on my lap. It's hard to believe Tom's parents don't want to meet such an adorable granddaughter. They never liked kids to begin with, my mom replied, but Tom has been working really hard to change their minds. Good for him. Ever since I discovered that Tom had been lying to both me and my parents, I'd started doubting everything he said. It was frustrating, to say the least, but today, it was all going to come to light. The atmosphere seemed cheerful, but I could feel the tension bubbling under the surface. Everyone was nervous, waiting for the big moment. What are we waiting for? Tom asked, oblivious to what was about to happen. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see Tom's parents standing there. Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? Tom stammered, his face turning pale. We're here to meet our granddaughter. Of course, his mother said firmly. Hurry and bring her out, but first, we need to wash our hands. Where's the bathroom? Tom looked flustered, clearly caught off guard. For almost a year, he had been lying to everyone, and now his deceit was about to unravel. I decided to play along. When did they change their minds? I asked innocently. They seem really eager to meet her now. Well, yeah, Tom muttered, avoiding eye contact. I've been talking to them, and I finally convinced them to meet her. Nice try, Tom, his mother said sharply, but we know the truth. No matter what excuses you come up with, we're meeting our granddaughter today. After washing their hands, Tom's parents approached me with warm smiles. They were playing their part perfectly, pretending they didn't know the full extent of Tom's deception. I never said you couldn't meet her, I said, feigning confusion. What's going on? Why the sudden visit? What are you talking about? His father interjected. We've been wanting to meet her for so long, isn't that right? At that moment, my parents walked in with Elena, who had been in the other room. There she is, my mother-in-law exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. Oh my goodness, what an adorable angel. Is this really our granddaughter? Elena smiled, giggling as she reached for her grandparents. She's such a sweetheart, I said, handing her to them. I'm glad you finally got to meet her. Now we can all talk. Tom looked cornered. What's going on here? I asked, turning to him. Why did you lie to both sides to keep them from meeting Elena? You owe us all an explanation. It was then that Tom's true motives came to light. He had been worried about the inheritance. As an only child, he had assumed everything would go to him. But after Elena was born, he realized she would have rights to a share. In his desperation to secure it all for himself, he had concocted a plan to prevent his parents from forming a bond with Elena. You've been thinking about inheritance when your parents are still alive? I said, appalled. You kept them from their granddaughter for a year, because of money? That's beyond selfish. Tom stammered. No, it's not like that. I was just following advice from my boss. Enough, his mother interrupted. Thanks to your efforts, we're going straight to a lawyer to make sure everything goes to Elena. While you're at it, I added, don't forget another document you'll need to sign, the divorce papers. Tom froze. Layla, no. Please don't do this. I can't stay married to someone who lies to everyone around him. It's only a matter of time before you try to manipulate Elena too. I'm done. Mom, Dad, Tom pleaded, will you still see Elena if Layla divorces me? Of course, his mother said coldly. We're cutting ties with you, not our granddaughter. You've made your bed, Tom. As I gathered Elena and prepared to leave, Tom's parents reiterated their plans. We'll make sure our estate is handled properly, his father said. And don't worry, Layla. Elena will always have us in her corner. With that, I walked out, leaving behind the home I had shared with Tom. It was no longer a place of trust or love, just a reminder of the lies that had nearly torn our family apart. After deciding to leave Tom behind, I packed up my things and returned to my parents' house. You're welcome to come too, Mom and Dad, I told them. We're getting everything ready to celebrate Elena's birthday there. Tom, left alone, pleaded desperately, wait. Don't leave me here by myself, but his cries fell on deaf ears as we headed to my parents' place. Shortly after, I finalized the divorce and secured full custody of Elena, along with child support. Tom didn't take it well. Angry at his boss for planting selfish ideas in his head, he caused trouble at work, which eventually led to him losing his job. He struggled to manage housework and daily life, often turning to his parents for help. However, they completely ignored his pleas, fed up with his behavior. I've heard they're even planning to sell their home and move far away, ensuring Tom won't find them. Back at my parents' house, I've been raising Elena with their unwavering support. I managed to land a full-time job, and life has been looking up. Today is Elena's second birthday, and we're throwing a party to celebrate this precious milestone. As friends and family gathered, I stood up to make a toast. Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us today. If I may, I'd like to propose a toast. Everyone raised their glasses. Cheers. Elena beamed and, in her tiny voice, joined in. Cheers. Wait, one of my relatives said with a laugh. She's only 2, right? I've never seen a 2-year-old say something like that so confidently. Neither have I, added another. Elena loves saying cheers, my mom chimed in. She practiced with Layla yesterday and did great. Surrounded by love, Elena is growing into a bright, happy little girl, a true treasure to everyone around her. As I reflect on how far we've come, I feel nothing but gratitude for the love and support that surrounds us. The future feels full of possibilities, and I'm excited to see what's next in our journey. I arrived home, greeted by warmth and celebration. Welcome back. Jel will be bringing her fiancé soon, my mom said. Jel is getting married? I said, still processing the news. It doesn't feel real. That day, my sister Jel came home to announce her engagement. I also decided to visit my parents, eager to share my own exciting news. Jel's getting married, and now I'm going to be a mom too. So many happy events. I exclaimed. It's been such a whirlwind, Jel said. By the way, I heard you left your new job. Was something wrong? It's a long story, I admitted. I didn't want to worry you, and I thought everything was resolved once I married Peter. Jell's fiancé, Josh, entered the room. "Hi, I'm Josh, Jell's fiancé," he introduced himself. "Nice to meet you," I said, smiling. "Oh, you're Josh? You're younger than I expected." "Don't be so nervous, everything's going to be fine." Despite my reassurances, Josh seemed uneasy. "When's the wedding?" I asked. "Well, we haven't set a date yet," Jell replied. "We need to coordinate it with your due date, now that we know you're pregnant." Josh's face turned even paler. "Oh, I didn't realize," he stammered. "Congratulations." Something about Josh's nervous demeanor unsettled me. He reminded me of someone from my past, though I couldn't place it immediately. The wedding day. The day of Jell's wedding arrived, filled with joy for some and anxiety for me. As I got up to use the restroom, supporting my heavy belly, my phone rang. "Hello?" I answered. The voice on the other end sent chills down my spine. "Have you forgotten the name of the man you betrayed?" John hissed. "You and your unborn child should just disappear, you con artist." Before I could respond, I felt a violent shove from behind. I barely managed to grab the handrail, avoiding a fall down the stairs. I spun around to see Jell's future mother-in-law glaring at me. "You've trampled on Josh's feelings, and you won't get away with it," she shouted, lunging at me again. "Stop." Peter, my husband, appeared and restrained her. As chaos erupted, John emerged from the shadows. "So, you're still alive," he sneered. "You think you can cover your tracks by marrying that thug and having his kid? I'll make sure neither of you survives." John picked up an ashtray and aimed it at me, but Peter swiftly disarmed him, pinning him to the ground. The wedding descended into turmoil. An emergency meeting was called, where John, his mother, Josh, and our families gathered in a tense room. "I'm so sorry," Josh began, his voice trembling. But John slammed his fist on the table. "Why are you apologizing? The one at fault here is her." He pointed at me, spouting delusional accusations. "You promised to marry me," John ranted, "but instead, you betrayed me and got pregnant by that thug." Peter calmly replied, "Enough. Your lies won't hold up. We have proof of your attempted murder." "What proof?" John scoffed. Jell stepped forward, holding a camera. "Actually, we recorded everything. This footage shows your mother pushing Emma down the stairs." John and his mother went pale. "We've already called the police," Peter added. Aftermath. John and his mother were arrested and later faced charges for attempted murder. Josh, who had been manipulated by his family for years, cut ties with them. He later visited us, tearfully apologizing for their actions. Meanwhile, Jell and I moved forward with our lives. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and Jell remained optimistic about her future. Though the ordeal left scars, our family grew stronger, united by love and resilience.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Chen. Growing up, my parents instilled in me the belief that true wealth comes from humility and smart work. While other kids dreamed of being doctors or lawyers, I was captivated by the stock market. By 12, I was devouring investment books and obsessively tracking market trends, much to my parents' bewilderment. "Sweetie, maybe you should spend more time with your friends," my mom would suggest, eyeing me over stacks of financial reports. "This is fun for me, Mom," I'd reply without looking up. "Did you know Warren Buffett bought his first stock at 11? She'd chuckle, shaking her head. "Just promise me you won't forget to live while you're planning your empire." That promise grew harder to keep as my hobby turned into a passion and eventually expertise. By 16, I was managing a modest portfolio with my savings and allowance. Winning a full scholarship to study finance at Harvard felt like destiny. At Harvard, I met Michael. He was studying business administration, charming, ambitious, and aiming to climb the corporate ladder. We met during finals week, both reaching for the same economics textbook. "Ladies first," he said with a warm smile. I laughed. "Thanks, I'm Jennifer." "Michael, maybe we could study together." What began as a shared study session blossomed into daily coffee dates, then a relationship. Unlike others I'd met, Michael admired my ambition. "You're going to dominate the business world," he'd say, watching me dissect market trends. "Any company would be lucky to have you." What he didn't know was that I wasn't planning to work for anyone else. My scholarship covered everything, so I funneled my earnings into investments. By graduation, my portfolio had grown exponentially. But I kept it quiet. I wanted success on my terms, not as the girl with the trust fund. Michael landed a prestigious job at Sterling Industries, a major tech firm in Boston, while I chose to work independently. When I declined several high-profile offers, Michael was skeptical. "Are you sure?" he asked. "These are dream opportunities." "I have my own plans," I replied with a smile. "Trust me." A year later, we got married in a modest ceremony. Michael's mother, Patricia, was less than thrilled with my career choice. "Investment consulting," she'd sneer. "Is that even a real job?" I smiled, recalling my parents' advice about staying humble. By then, my portfolio was worth over $50 million, strategically diversified and quietly making me one of Sterling's largest individual shareholders. Though no one, not even Michael, knew. Michael thrived at Sterling, rising through the ranks to work under James Wilson, the arrogant VP of operations. Wilson was infamous for his outdated views, especially about women. "The problem with modern marriages," he'd say at company events, "is women forgetting their place." Michael would laugh awkwardly, avoiding confrontation. It irritated me, but I let it slide until the annual executive party. Sterling was unveiling restructuring plans, and as a key shareholder, I had a vested interest in attending. "Are you sure you want to come?" Michael asked. "These events can be dull for non-employees." "I think it's time I took a closer look at your work," I replied, carefully applying my makeup. I chose a classic black dress, pearl earrings, and my grandmother's vintage watch, a talisman in every major decision I'd made. The hotel ballroom buzzed with chatter as we arrived. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, and the scent of champagne lingered in the air. Michael led me to James Wilson, who was holding court near the bar. "Jennifer." "Michael," James called, raising his glass. We were just discussing Sterling's exciting new direction. "Cutting R&D for short-term profits?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Doesn't innovation drive sustainable growth?" James's smile faltered. "Ah, the little wife has opinions on business, does she?" Laughter rippled through the group. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "She likes to read the financial news," he said quickly. "Honey, maybe we should grab some drinks." But James wasn't done. "Sterling's biggest problem," he announced loudly, "is too many voices from people who don't understand real business, like housewives who think reading the Wall Street Journal makes them experts." The crowd chuckled, but I noticed the CEO, Thomas Richards, watching with interest. My husband, once so proud of my intelligence, stared at his shoes. Before I could speak, a familiar voice interrupted. "Actually, James, you might want to rethink that." Sarah Martinez, my private banker and confidant, stepped forward, her smile sharp. "Should I explain, Jennifer, or would you like to?" James's smug expression faltered. "What's going on here?" I straightened, feeling my grandmother's watch against my wrist. The time had come. "Since you're so concerned about shareholder value, James," I said, my voice calm, "perhaps we should discuss the report I'm presenting at Monday's board meeting. The one outlining why your restructuring plan will fail." James turned crimson. "Board meeting? What are you talking about?" CEO Richards stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "Jennifer Chen, JC Holdings." I knew the name sounded familiar. I smiled. Surprise. Strategic anonymity can be a powerful tool. "What's going on?" Michael whispered, his face pale and voice trembling. Sarah stepped forward, her tone cutting through the silence. "Your wife," she announced to the room, "owns 51% of Sterling Industries shares. And no, she doesn't spend her days shopping." The silence hung for a moment before chaos erupted. James Wilson's face turned a vivid red, cycling through shades I didn't know were possible. Michael looked as though he might faint. "This is absurd," James sputtered. "There must be some mistake." Sarah, ever composed, tapped on her tablet. "I can show you the documentation if you'd like. I have all the records right here." CEO Richards stepped forward, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That won't be necessary, Sarah. I've suspected as much for some time. The board has been impressed with Mrs. Chen's insights and recommendations for years." James turned to him, stunned. "You knew?" "Of course," Richards replied smoothly. "Why do you think your restructuring plan hasn't been approved?" Mrs. Chen raised significant objections. Michael finally found his voice, though it wavered. "Jennifer." "How? When?" I met his wide-eyed gaze. Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private, I suggested, glancing at the growing crowd of onlookers. My office is just upstairs, Richards offered. Shall we? The elevator ride was oppressively silent. Michael alternated between glancing at me and staring at the floor, while James seethed. Sarah, steady as ever, stood by my side, a quiet but unwavering presence. Richard's office was expansive, with panoramic views of the Boston skyline. As we took our seats, James immediately claimed the chair nearest Richard's desk, as if proximity could restore his authority. Well, Richards began, leaning back in his chair, this has been an eventful evening. Eventful? James exploded. This is outrageous. She can't possibly. She can and does. Sarah interrupted, laying documents on the desk. Jennifer Chen, through carefully managed investment vehicles, controls 51% of Sterling Industries. She's been building her position over the past 5 years. Michael's expression morphed from confusion to hurt. 5 years? But we've been married for 3. I started investing in Sterling before we met. I explained evenly. The company had potential but needed modernization. I saw an opportunity. Modernization? James sneered. Yes, James, I replied calmly. Modernization. Like fostering innovation instead of getting R&D. Like respecting your employees instead of perpetuating a toxic workplace. Richards leaned forward. Mrs. Chen's recommendations have been instrumental in shaping our strategy. Her analysis has consistently outperformed expectations. Michael's voice was barely audible. Why didn't you tell me? I held his gaze. Would it have made a difference? Would you have defended me against James's comments if you'd known I was Sterling's majority shareholder? He flinched, the answer clear without being spoken. This is preposterous, James barked, rising from his chair. I've dedicated 15 years to Sterling. You can't just turn it into a toxic environment where innovation and talent are stifled. I interrupted. James, your restructuring plan would destroy this company. The board won't be supporting it, Richards cut in. In fact, we need to discuss your future with Sterling. My future? James looked stricken. Yes, I said, standing to meet his glare. Your leadership is outdated, your strategies are short-sighted, and your conduct unacceptable. Sterling deserves better. You can't fire me, James shouted. You're just a majority shareholder, Sarah interjected coolly. And yes, she can. Michael remained frozen, his expression unreadable. You told me you were consulting, he murmured. You said it was small scale. I never lied, I said softly. I just didn't tell you everything. Would you have respected my decisions if I had? James erupted again, pointing at Michael. She's tearing us apart. Women like her. That's enough, Richard snapped, his tone sharp. James, you'll receive the details of your separation package tomorrow. Please leave. James stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Sarah excused herself, leaving me alone with Michael and Richards. Mrs. Chen, Richards began, will you be taking a more active role in the company? Yes, I replied firmly, starting with a comprehensive review of our culture and leadership. Michael finally spoke, his voice cracking. And what about us? I turned to him, my voice steady. That depends. Are you ready to see me as an equal, or am I still just the little wife you asked to stay quiet at company events? I need time, he stammered, standing abruptly. This is all too much. He left, and I watched his retreating figure. Richards cleared his throat. Family and business rarely mix well. True, I said, exhaling deeply, but principles shouldn't be compromised. The days that followed were a whirlwind. James's firing made headlines, Sterling Industries, a shakeup at the top. The stock price dipped briefly before recovering as my vision for the company became public. Michael stayed with his parents, processing everything. His mother left a string of hostile voicemails, which I deleted without hesitation. My focus remained on transforming Sterling, revitalizing R&D, implementing work-life balance policies, and fostering innovation. A week later, Michael returned. He looked worn, his usual polish replaced by exhaustion. Can we talk? He asked hesitantly. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat, then immediately stood again, pacing nervously. I've been thinking about everything, he began. About us, about work. And? I prompted. I was wrong, he admitted, his voice low. I let James and others disrespect you. I should have stood up for you. I was so focused on my career that I forgot what really matters. I watched him for a moment before replying. Change doesn't come through words, Michael. It comes through actions. Are you ready to show me that you see me as your equal? He nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. Yes, I am. I waited silently, giving him space to continue. But you weren't completely honest either, Michael added after a moment. You kept such a huge part of your life hidden from me. How are we supposed to have a real marriage with secrets like that? You're right, I admitted, keeping my voice calm. I should have trusted you with the truth. But Michael, ask yourself, why didn't I feel I could? He sank into the chair, his hands running through his hair. Because I showed you I couldn't be trusted. Every time I laughed at James's jokes, every time I told you to stay quiet. I proved I cared more about office politics than supporting my wife. The next few weeks tested everything, my marriage, my resolve, and my ability to steer Sterling Industries through massive change. James Wilson hadn't gone quietly. He hired a lawyer and threatened to sue for wrongful termination, and his allies within the company whispered behind my back. She's tearing down our traditions, they muttered in the break room. This is what happens when you let emotions run a business, others sneered. But facts don't lie. Within a month, employee satisfaction soared by 40%, and R&D, finally free from James's stifling grip, filed 12 patent applications. The stock price climbed steadily, proving that my changes were more than just radical. They were necessary. At home, Michael hovered in a strange limbo, sleeping in the guest room and walking on eggshells around me. His mother, Patricia, however, had no such hesitation. She stormed into our house one afternoon, her designer heels clicking like gunfire. We need to talk, she announced, barely pausing before stepping into the living room. By all means, I said dryly, closing the door behind her. This power trip of yours has gone far enough, she declared, folding her arms. You've made your point. Now step back and let the men handle business. I raised an eyebrow. The men? You've humiliated Michael enough already, she snapped. His colleagues don't know how to treat him anymore. Do you have any idea what this is doing to his career? Humiliating? I repeated. Like being laughed at during business functions? Like being dismissed as just a housewife? That's different. She waved a manicured hand dismissively. That's just how business works. Men need to. Need to what, Patricia? Undermine women to prop up their egos. Pretend competence doesn't exist if it comes from the wrong gender. You tricked him, she burst out. My son married you thinking you were a normal wife, and no. Now what? Michael's voice cut through the tension, startling us both. Michael. Patricia turned to him, her expression softening with relief. Thank goodness you're here. We need to talk sense into her before she destroys everything. But Michael wasn't looking at her. His eyes were locked on me, filled with something I hadn't seen in weeks, understanding. Mom, he said evenly, you need to leave. What? But? Now, he said firmly. After she left, silence settled between us. Michael sank onto the couch, exhaustion etched into his face. I heard everything, he said quietly, and I finally realized I've been just like her, treating you like you needed to be managed, not supported. And I'm sorry. I sat down beside him, keeping a cautious distance. I didn't want to outshine you, Michael. I just wanted your respect as your wife, as a partner, as a person. You have it, he said softly. I know I don't deserve your trust right now, but I want to earn it. Not because of your money or your power, but because I love you. And I want to be the partner you deserve. My phone buzzed, breaking the moment. It was Sarah. Jennifer, she said when I answered, James has withdrawn his lawsuit. Word about Sterling's latest quarterly projections has spread. And they're impressive. Send me the details, I said with a smile. And Sarah? Thank you. For everything. When I hung up, Michael asked, Good news. James is backing down. I confirmed. It seems success really is the best revenge. Michael nodded thoughtfully. What happens now? With Sterling and with us. Sterling will keep evolving, I replied. We're rolling out a new parental leave policy and launching a mentorship program for women in tech next month. And us? He asked, his voice hesitant. I took a deep breath. That depends. Are you ready for a marriage of equals? Really ready? I'd like to try, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. Starting with moving out of the guest room, if you're okay with that. It's killing my back. I laughed, surprising myself. We'll need couples counseling, and you'll have to stand up to your mother. Done, he said, grinning. Though maybe we should have dinner with her next week. I'd love to see her face when you explain your women's leadership initiative. For the first time in weeks, I felt real hope for our future.
I can't eat homemade food made by poor people like you. I prefer high-end sushi. Her words cut through the air, halting me in the middle of preparing dinner. Poor people, you said? I repeated, trying to make sense of her sharp, mocking tone. Her voice carried a hint of a smile, making her insult sting even more. I placed my hand on the kitchen counter, momentarily at a loss for words. Someone like you as a mother-in-law is the worst, she continued, her words dripping with disdain. But I'm trying to bear with it because your son is an elite, and your husband runs a company. Her casual cruelty hung heavy in the room, sucking the warmth from the atmosphere. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Years of hard work and dedication to keep this family together, dismissed with a single sentence. Yet, I held on, trying to believe there was more to her than the arrogance she displayed. Then, my husband, David, who had been silently observing, finally stood up. With just one word, he silenced the room, leaving us all frozen in place. My name is Lisa Scott. I live with my husband, David, and our 2 sons, James and Adam. I've spent most of my life as a stay-at-home mom, committed to raising my children. Perhaps my devotion to family stems from my own childhood, one marked by the absence of stability and love. When I was just 3, my parents divorced. My mother took me in, working tirelessly to provide for us. Despite her efforts, we lived in poverty. Dinner was often the same meal night after night, and exhaustion etched itself into my mother's face. Yet, she never let her struggles overshadow her love for me. She celebrated my smallest victories and always found a way to make me feel cherished. But her health couldn't keep up with the endless sacrifices. When I started elementary school, she fell gravely ill, unable to work. She could no longer support us. The financial strain was too much, and I was sent to live in a children's home. Life at the home was challenging, filled with children from all walks of life. I learned independence, resilience, and the painful value of family. Those experiences shaped me, teaching me to treasure every moment with my loved ones. When I married David, we didn't have much, but we were happy. He started his business around the time I was pregnant with James. It was a slow start, but we made it work, always prioritizing family time. Over the years, his hard work paid off, the business flourished, and we were able to provide a comfortable life for our sons. James was ambitious and studious, earning a place at a prestigious university and later a job at a top company. Adam, our younger son, excelled in sports and earned a soccer scholarship. I still remember James's excitement when he shared his success. Mom, Dad, I did it. I got in. My husband and I were so proud, knowing that his determination and hard work had paid off. As our sons thrived, I felt like our family had reached a beautiful harmony. That's why, when James introduced Mary to us, I wanted so badly to welcome her with open arms. Mary was tall, elegant, and carried herself with confidence. Her cheerful demeanor and engaging conversation instantly put me at ease. She spoke passionately about her career in interior design, and I found myself genuinely admiring her ambition. For a moment, I thought of her as the daughter I never had. She fit into our family so naturally, until I glimpsed a side of her I hadn't expected. When James stepped away to use the bathroom and David took a call, Mary's demeanor shifted. The warmth in her eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, critical gaze. Concerned, I asked, "Are you okay?" She blinked, her expression tightening. "What do you mean?" "It's just, your expression changed," I said cautiously. "Oh, it's nothing," she replied dismissively. Then, gesturing to the dessert I had served, she said, "Where did you get this cake? It tastes so cheap." I was taken aback. "Excuse me?" She smirked. "I have a favorite bakery. Next time, I'll bring something from there. You won't want to eat anything else after that." Her tone was laced with condescension as she poked at the cake with her fork. Her words lingered, leaving me unsettled. The cheerful, polite Mary from earlier seemed like a distant memory. I was surprised and a bit hurt by Mary's earlier words, but I decided to stay silent. When James returned from the bathroom and David finished his call, Mary's demeanor shifted as if nothing had happened. Her expression brightened, her cheerful tone returning effortlessly. I chose not to bring up the unsettling moment, but a sense of unease lingered. Later that evening, Adam arrived home. "I'm back," he called, sounding tired. "Welcome back, Adam, you're late. Everything okay?" I asked, watching him closely. "Yeah, just a long day," he replied, his tone weary as he walked into the living room. Mary stood up, her enthusiasm bubbling over. "Nice to meet you, I'm Mary. I've heard so much about you from James." Adam offered a polite but tired smile, extending his hand for a handshake. "Nice to meet you too," he said, his voice cordial but distant. We all sat down at the table again. James and Mary carried most of the conversation, while Adam remained quiet, only speaking when directly addressed. "You play soccer in college, right? What position?" Mary asked, trying to engage him. "Forward," Adam replied curtly. "That's so cool. Soccer must require a lot of teamwork." "Yeah, it does." Despite her efforts, Adam's responses stayed brief. Mary didn't seem bothered and moved the conversation back to herself. "I was in the volleyball club in college. Team unity is everything, don't you think?" "Yeah, I guess," Adam said, clearly uninterested. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Suddenly, Adam stood up. "Hey, where are you going?" James asked, sounding annoyed. "I'm tired. I need some sleep," Adam replied, irritation creeping into his voice. "That's rude. Mary's here, and you're just leaving?" Adam shrugged. "I don't think it's rude. Good night." As Adam walked out, Mary's warm expression flickered. She glared at his back and clicked her tongue, a subtle but telling gesture. My stomach tightened. Was there something more beneath her cheerful facade? Mary quickly regained her composure. "It's been a long day. I think I'll head home now," she said, her voice light again. After seeing James and Mary off, I turned to David. "What do you think of her?" "She seems cheerful and nice," he said thoughtfully, "but Adam's behavior was unusual. He's not usually like that." "I noticed too," I said, my voice quieter. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but something feels off." David gave me a reassuring look. "Let's give it some time. Everyone feels things differently." That night, the house was quiet. As I sat on the sofa reflecting on the evening, Adam walked in. "Mom, can I talk to you?" "Of course," I said, gesturing for him to sit beside me. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "That girl, Mary, I don't think she and I get along. James likes her a lot, but I just don't get a good feeling about her." "Why do you feel that way?" I asked gently. "It's not anything specific," he admitted, "just a feeling." I nodded slowly. "I understand. Sometimes, gut feelings matter." He looked relieved. "She smiles, but I feel like there's something else behind it." "I felt it too," I confessed, not to speak ill of her, "but there's something unsettling about her. I don't want to upset James, but I can't ignore it either." Our conversation lasted a while, with Adam expressing his unease. His concerns mirrored my own, and I felt more justified in my cautious approach. The next morning, tension hung over breakfast. When Mary's name came up, Adam's expression hardened. "James, what do you even see in her?" "Stop it, Adam," James snapped. "Why do I have to explain myself to you? Come on, it's weird. Mom feels it too." "I don't care what Mom said," James shouted. "I like Mary." Their argument escalated until I intervened. "Enough, both of you. That's no way to talk to each other." Adam calmed down, though his face remained stormy. James stayed upset, but I tried to ease the tension. "Adam, it's important to respect James's choice, but James, we can't dismiss how Adam feels either." "Fine," Adam muttered, backing off. As breakfast ended, the mood lightened slightly, but Adam's worried expression stayed with me. Despite the tension, James and Mary eventually got married. For their first holiday as newlyweds, they planned to stay over, and I prepared a feast to celebrate. When they arrived, Mary's eyes lit up at the sight of the spread. "Wow, this looks amazing. I've never seen such a feast before." "Thank you," I said warmly. "I made this to celebrate your marriage." "Thank you so much. I feel so blessed," Mary said, smiling sweetly. Her words eased some of my doubts, and we began eating together. However, as we cleaned up after the meal, Mary's tone shifted again. "These plates are a bit old, aren't they?" she said, her voice laced with condescension. "These plates have been with us since we got married. They're full of memories," I explained. "Oh, I see," she said with a faint smirk. "Or maybe you just can't afford new ones?" Her words stung. "Mary," before I could respond, she whispered coldly, "you should serve sushi next time. I can't eat homemade food made by poor people like you." I froze, her words hitting harder than I expected. This wasn't the Mary James saw. This was someone else entirely. I was stunned by Mary's words and the cold stare she gave me. Poor people? Did you really say that? My voice rose before I could stop it, drawing the attention of James, Adam, and David. It's nothing, Mary said quickly, trying to brush it off. But I couldn't let it go. You called us poor, didn't you? She clicked her tongue, a look of disdain crossing her face. So, the mask slips, Adam said, glaring at her. Why did you even marry James? You're just after his and Dad's money, aren't you? Calm down, Adam, James said, stepping in. Don't be ridiculous. Mom's just imagining things. Imagining? Didn't you hear what she said to Mom? How can you defend her? Adam shot back, the tension between the brothers rising. I said it as a joke, Mary interjected with a dismissive wave. No need to make such a big deal out of it. A joke? I said, my voice steady but firm. Mary, even as a joke, that's not something you should say. Words like that hurt. Mary rolled her eyes. Fine, sorry if you're all so sensitive. Sensitive? Adam was furious now. This isn't about sensitivity, it's about respect. Do you even care about James or this family? Mary sighed dramatically, as though she were tired of the entire exchange. Of course, I care about James. Why else would I marry him? Adam wasn't convinced. Then why say things like that about his family? If you cared, you wouldn't be so disrespectful. I was just being honest, Mary said, her tone sharpening. James told me himself how hard your mom's life was growing up. I'm just stating the obvious. She's strong, sure, but having someone like her as a mother-in-law isn't exactly ideal. Her words cut deep, and I saw the shock on James's face. Mary, what are you saying? He asked, his voice trembling. I'm saying the truth, James. You're an elite, your family isn't exactly on the same level, but I thought I could overlook that because of you, she said, her voice cold and unapologetic. And honestly, she added, glancing at Adam, he's more my type anyway. Adam's chair scraped loudly as he stood, his fists clenched. That's enough. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy. My husband, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up, his voice calm but commanding. Mary, I think it's time you left. What? Why? Mary looked genuinely surprised. I've tolerated a lot for the sake of peace, but insulting my family crosses a line, he said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling your father, he needs to know what's happened here. Wait, what? Mary stammered, but my husband didn't waver. Minutes later, the doorbell rang, and David went to answer it. Mary's parents entered the living room, her mother looking nervous while her father, Larry, appeared calm but firm. What's going on here? Larry asked, his gaze shifting between us and his daughter. Your daughter has crossed a line, my husband said. She insulted my family, and it's clear she has no respect for us. Mary? Larry turned to her, his tone heavy with disappointment. What did you say? I didn't do anything wrong, she protested. Don't lie to me, Mary, he said sternly. Tell me the truth. Mary hesitated but didn't respond. Her mother tried to defend her. Larry, let's not jump to conclusions. Enough, he cut her off. Mary, you've embarrassed this family. If you can't respect James's family, you have no place here. Dad, you can't mean that. Mary's voice cracked as the weight of his words hit her. I do, Larry said firmly. It's time for you to grow up. You'll learn the value of respect and family when you're on your own. Tears streamed down Mary's face, but Larry didn't relent. You're leaving with me today, and until you can apologize and prove you've changed, you're not welcome here. Mary and her parents left soon after, the atmosphere in the house heavy with unresolved tension. James sat quietly, his head in his hands. I'm sorry, he finally said. I should have seen this sooner. It's okay, I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. What matters is that we move forward. In the months that followed, James and Mary finalized their divorce. While it was a painful chapter, it brought our family closer together. James later met Erica, a kind and thoughtful woman who valued family above all else. Their relationship blossomed naturally, and when James introduced her to us, we instantly felt at ease. Years passed, and our family grew with new spouses, grandchildren, and shared memories. We learned that love and respect are the true foundations of family. Watching my grandchildren play in the yard one sunny afternoon, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had faced challenges, but through it all, our bond had only grown stronger.
Having me as a so-called useless daughter-in-law must be such a disappointment. At least that's how she always made me feel. Her mocking laughter rang through the phone, leaving me stunned. The arrogance in her voice and her blatant disregard for me ignited a surge of anger. She had always treated me like I was nothing, but this time, her cruelty went too far. As the rest area faded into the distance, I realized I was completely alone. Moments ago, I had been with my family, but now they had abandoned me. Confusion and fear swept over me, yet her cold, cutting words echoed in my mind. You who just sit around the house don't deserve to stay at a hotel. My chest tightened. Despite all my hard work, she never acknowledged my efforts. I ran an inn with dedication and managed every detail to perfection. Yet she clung to her narrative, intent on destroying my self-worth. On her end of the call, I could hear relatives laughing, their mockery amplifying my isolation. Her influence had turned the entire family against me. Even my husband refused to defend me. Anger and sadness churned inside me. The humiliation, the dismissal of my contributions, and now this outright betrayal. It was too much. Her sneering face and contemptuous eyes filled my mind. Her obsession with pushing me away felt suffocating. Something inside me snapped. A decision crystallized in my mind. No more. I drew a deep breath and held my phone tightly, my fingers trembling, not with fear, but with the raw power of long-suppressed rage. My heart raced, fueled by a newfound determination. "Hello," I said, dialing with shaky fingers. My voice was calm, steady, yet brimming with resolve. "I have a favor to ask." This was the beginning of reclaiming my life. It was also the first step toward an unexpected revenge. My name is Maya Smith, age 40. I'm a manager at a large corporation. I met my husband, Tom, in our late 30s. After dating for 6 months, we decided to marry. In the beginning, he was attentive and kind, but over time, he grew indifferent. Now, our conversations are minimal, and he barely notices my presence. Still, I accepted it, convincing myself this was just the way things were. One evening, as I cleaned up after dinner, Tom spoke to me unexpectedly. "Hey, Maya, I need to talk to you." "Oh, what's up?" I replied, smiling, pleased he was addressing me directly for once. "My family is planning a trip, about 20 relatives. They want me to handle the hotel reservations and organize the itinerary." "Really? That sounds like a big task." "Well, I'm busy with work, and you've got more days off than I do. So you take care of it. Find a cheap place, since I'm paying for everything. If you're coming, pitch in too." I wanted to point out that I worked hard and upheld my responsibilities just as much as he did, even if I had slightly more flexibility. But I bit my tongue. For once, he was asking for my help, and I wanted to oblige. Spending time with his family wasn't exactly enticing, but this was for him. "Okay," I said. "I'll handle everything." "Thanks. Just pick a place that won't embarrass us in front of my family." With that, he lay back on the couch, scrolling through his phone. After finishing the cleanup, I retreated to the bedroom and made a call to a familiar contact. "Hi, it's me. I need a favor," I said, my voice calm yet purposeful. A few days later, Tom's parents arrived at our apartment. When I had shared the travel plans with Tom, he'd insisted we invite them over to go through the details in person. As they stepped inside, Tom's mother, Elaine, made a beeline for my kitchen cabinets and began rummaging through them without hesitation. "Maya, are you seriously eating gourmet instant curry from a hotel? How indulgent. You should be cooking for Tom instead of living off things like this," she remarked with mock disapproval, pulling out a few packets. Without asking, she casually dropped them into her bag. This was nothing new. Every time Elaine visited, she treated my kitchen like her personal shopping aisle, helping herself to groceries, canned goods, and even decorative items. Once, she took a set of dishes without a word. Her justification was always the same. "Anything in my son's house is fair game. What's wrong with me taking it?" After that, I started hiding my favorite items before their visits. Tom's father, Rick, stood idly by, laughing as Elaine continued her spree. Once she was done shopping, she finally sat down. Timing it perfectly, I presented the hotel details. "Here's where we'll be staying," I said, pulling up the website for the luxury hotel I had booked. I handed them my phone to show off the sleek images of the newly opened property. Elaine glanced at it, her lips curling into a dismissive scoff. "Well, aren't you getting above your station? How are you affording this?" Fortunately, I managed to negotiate a group discount under Tom's name. I replied evenly. "I thought you were useless, but I guess you can handle something like this," she said, her tone haughty. Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. What Elaine didn't know, And what I hadn't shared was the truth about the hotel. It was part of my own business. My family had operated a modest inn for years, but after it gained media attention, bookings skyrocketed. With the surge in demand, especially from international tourists, we expanded into high-end hospitality. I had been managing the new luxury property ever since. Tom knew my family owned a business, but he had no idea I was running such a prestigious hotel. I had kept it a secret, fearing it would create tension. Tom had once complained about my income surpassing his, so I downplayed my career whenever it came up. Over time, I resolved not to share the full extent of my success with him or his parents. "I'm sure you'll love it," I said with a polite smile. "The place is beautiful and the hospitality is exceptional." Elaine gave me a skeptical look. "We'll see. I'll keep my expectations low." Then, without missing a beat, she added, "Since we're here, let's do some shopping. And we should grab dinner at a nice restaurant too." She completely ignored my offer to cook a meal and left shortly after. The day of the trip finally arrived. Tom, his parents, and I set off in his car, planning to meet the rest of the family at the hotel. Elaine, seated in the back, couldn't resist her usual jabs. "Tom, isn't it time you replace this old car? You shouldn't be driving around in something so shabby." Tom sighed, keeping his eyes on the road. "I'd love to, but it's not in the budget." I glanced at him, feeling a pang of sympathy. This trip was already expensive, and I knew how much pressure he was under to impress his family. "Oh, I'll pay for it. I can't stand the idea of my son driving around in such a junker," Elaine said with a dramatic sigh from the backseat. "Really? Thanks, Mom," Tom replied, brightening immediately. "Of course. We'll go to the dealership together next week and pick out something more impressive." They continued chatting as if I weren't sitting right there beside Tom in the front seat. Moments like this had become the norm with his family, but that didn't make it hurt any less. "You know," Elaine mused, her tone turning sharp, "if only there were grandkids along for this trip. But I guess at this point, it's too late to hope for that." "Well, that's what happens when you marry a woman who's already past her prime." "Mom, Dad, can you not?" Tom muttered, but he didn't press further, letting their cruel comments hang in the air. I kept quiet, staring out the window, regretting ever agreeing to come along. After a long silence, I finally spoke up softly. "Tom, I need to use the restroom. Can we stop at the next service area?" Elaine immediately rolled her eyes. "Couldn't you have gone before we left? This is why we're always late." "I'm sorry. I'll be quick," I assured her. Tom pulled into the next service area, and I hurried inside. The line for the women's restroom was long, and I nervously glanced at my watch, worried about holding everyone up. After 10 minutes, I finally emerged, only to find the parking space where Tom's car had been now empty. Confused, I looked around, wondering if I had somehow missed them. I called Tom, but he didn't answer. Slowly, the realization sank in. After a few more failed attempts to reach him, I tried Elaine instead. She answered immediately. "Oh, hello, Maya. Something wrong?" "I'm still at the service area," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did something happen?" "Oh, we're already at the hotel," she replied, her tone dripping with disdain. "Trips like these are for family, you know. You're just an outsider tagging along." Her words hit like a punch to the gut. "Elaine, you're already spoiled with what my son provides without working or contributing. You can sit this one out," she cut me off, her mocking laughter ringing through the line. In the background, I could hear other family members laughing too. Then, without waiting for a response, she hung up. I stood there stunned. The weight of her words settled over me as I fought against the despair creeping in. I had worked tirelessly to organize this trip, putting my own responsibilities on hold, only to be abandoned like this. But feeling sorry for myself wouldn't solve anything. I faced worse as a hotel manager, handling crises with composure. Drawing on that strength, I took a deep breath and called the hotel. "Hello, this is Maya. I have a reservation under Smith. Could you confirm it, please?" After ensuring everything was in order, I made another call. "Hi, it's Maya," I said to my assistant at the main office. "I'm stranded at a service area and need a ride to the hotel." "Of course, Ms. Smith. I'll send a car right away," she replied. Relieved, I hung up. Soon, I'd be back on track. Meanwhile, in the car, Elaine gloated to Tom. "That woman's never been a good fit for you. She's too old for kids and not exactly a catch." "Mom, enough," Tom said, though his voice lacked conviction. I'm just saying, you deserve someone who's actually a family person, she continued. Tom sat in silence, torn but unable to find the courage to defend me. Later, at the hotel, Tom and his family settled into their luxurious rooms, enjoying the evening as if nothing had happened. They gathered in the dining area for an elaborate meal. Tom really went all out with this place, Rick said, looking around in approval. This hotel is famous nationwide. I hope it didn't cost too much. Well, Maya handled the arrangements, Tom admitted, trying to sound casual. I'm covering it, of course. That's what a good husband does. Tom's unease was evident, but he tried to push it aside and enjoy the moment. The next morning, as the family prepared to check out, they assumed all charges were already covered. But as they gathered in the lobby, the hotel manager approached them. Excuse me, here's your final bill, he said, handing Tom a detailed statement. Tom frowned as he glanced at the total. His eyes widened. The charges included a suite upgrade, additional services, and the group's special rate. Wait, Tom stammered. Why is this so much more than expected? I thought everything was handled with a discount. I apologize, sir, the manager said with polite firmness, but the discounted rate was only available if the owner was present. Tom frowned, his confusion evident. The owner? Who's that supposed to be? That would be Maya Smith, your wife. The room fell silent. Tom's face paled and a hush settled over the family. Elaine clutched her purse tightly, as though holding onto it could somehow make the charges vanish. You mean she, Maya, owns this hotel? Tom stammered, his voice shaky. The manager gave a calm nod. Yes, she's the owner. Since she wasn't present, the discounted rate is void. The total amount due now is $20,000. Elaine gasped, her grip on her purse tightening further. Tom, do something. This must be some kind of mistake. I didn't know, Tom stuttered, looking increasingly flustered. I didn't realize Maya was the owner. The manager extended the bill with a steady hand. How would you like to settle this? The other relatives began murmuring among themselves, shifting uncomfortably. You didn't know she owned this place, and she paid for everything, someone whispered. Tom's gaze fell to the floor, unable to meet their eyes. Meanwhile, I arrived at the hotel, determined to face Tom and his family. The staff greeted me warmly. Welcome back, Miss Smith, the manager said with a respectful smile. Everything has been handled as you requested. I thanked him and headed to the lobby. As I entered, I spotted Tom and his family at the counter, their expressions a mix of embarrassment and unease. Squaring my shoulders, I approached them, my head held high. Good morning, everyone, I said, my voice calm but firm. I see you're having a lovely time. The shock on their faces was almost comical. Elaine was the first to recover, her tone thick with false sweetness. Maya, dear, we were just surprised. We didn't realize you were the owner here. I'm sure you didn't, I replied evenly, but I hope my outsider status no longer concerns you. Maya, listen, Tom began, but I held up a hand to stop him. No, you listen. You left me behind because I wasn't family enough. But I'm the reason you're even here, and I pay for everything. A heavy silence followed. No one dared to look at me, their eyes cast downward. Now about that bill, I added, my tone resolute. No more discounts. Consider it payment for the years of disrespect. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away, a sense of closure settling over me. I left them to figure out how to handle the costs on their own. Later that day, I decided to check out of my hotel suite and head home. The decision felt symbolic, leaving behind not just the trip, but Tom and his family, once and for all. Back in my suite, I packed my bags, reflecting on everything I had endured. This trip had been a turning point, a realization that I deserved respect and appreciation, things I'd never received from Tom or his family. As I was finishing up, the manager knocked on the door and entered carrying a parting gift. Miss Smith, thank you for your continued partnership and for trusting us. We hope this is just the beginning of many more successful ventures. Thank you, I replied, smiling. This hotel feels like a second home to me, and you've helped make it truly special. Checking out of the hotel felt like stepping into a new chapter. A powerful sense of freedom washed over me, freedom from the past, from constant judgment, and from the weight of others' expectations. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce, finally choosing myself over a loveless marriage. I poured my energy into expanding the family business, opening more luxury inns, and pursuing dreams I'd shelved for far too long. Surprisingly, news of my divorce and Tom's mounting financial troubles soon spread. But I didn't dwell on it. My new life was brimming with purpose, community, and growth, surrounded by people who respected me and believed in my vision. On quiet evenings, I'd raise a glass to myself, grateful for the strength to walk away and build a life on my own terms. Happiness, I realized, was something I could claim for myself, and I wasn't looking back. The night shift at Metropolitan General was always challenging, but this one would change everything. I was just finishing my rounds when they brought him in, an elderly man, unconscious, wearing tattered clothes and carrying no ID. Another homeless case. Dr. Richards sighed, barely glancing at the patient. Put him in the hallway until we clear a non-priority bed. But something about the man's face seemed familiar. Despite his ragged appearance, his hands showed signs of recent professional care. And the way he was clutching a worn leather notebook. I'll take him to room 712. I decided. It was technically reserved for VIP patients, but it had been empty for weeks. Are you insane, Sarah? Amy, the charge nurse whispered. If Dr. Harrison finds out you put a homeless man in a VIP suite. Dr. Victoria Harrison wasn't just any hospital administrator. She was the CEO who turned Metropolitan General from a caring community hospital into a profit-focused corporation. Under her leadership, non-priority patients were often left waiting for hours. Everyone deserves proper care, I replied, remembering my own father's last days in a hospital hallway. Help me move him. As we transferred the mystery patient, his notebook fell open. I caught a glimpse of complex medical diagrams before quickly closing it. Something wasn't adding up. I spent my entire shift monitoring him, neglecting the paperwork Dr. Harrison always insisted was more important than excessive patient attention. His vitals were stable but concerning. Every instinct told me this man needed careful observation. At 6 a.m., Dr. Harrison's clicking heels announced her early morning inspection. She stopped dead when she saw our hallway empty of waiting patients. Where are the overflow cases? She demanded. Room 712, I answered honestly. I assessed the situation and... You put someone in a VIP suite without authorization. Her perfectly painted lips curled in disgust. Who? John Doe case, approximately 70 years old, brought in at 2 a.m. with... a homeless man. She cut me off. In my VIP wing. She stormed into room 712, taking in the scene with growing fury. Are you deliberately trying to destroy this hospital's reputation? He needs proper care. I stood my ground. His symptoms indicate. Your job isn't to think, she snapped. It's to follow protocols, and protocol says non-paying patients wait in the hallway. That's not healthcare, I protested. It's not what Metropolitan General used to stand for. Used to? She laughed coldly. You mean before I turned this failing hospital into a profitable enterprise? Clear this room immediately and consider yourself terminated. You can't fire her for providing care, Amy spoke up. I can fire her for misuse of hospital resources, Dr. Harrison smiled. Security, please escort Nurse Chen out of the building. And move this person to the hallway where he belongs. As security approached, the patient's heart monitor began beeping erratically. I rushed to his side, professional instincts taking over. Step away from him, Dr. Harrison ordered. You're no longer employed here. That's when the patient's eyes opened. He looked straight at me, then at Dr. Harrison, and spoke in a clear, educated voice. Actually, she works for me. We all do. Dr. Harrison froze. What? Thomas Chen, he said calmly, despite the monitor's warnings. Majority shareholder of Metropolitan General Hospital. And I believe we need to discuss how you've been running my father's legacy. The security guards stepped back. Dr. Harrison's face went from angry red to ghostly white. Because everyone in healthcare knew the Chen name, the family that had built Metropolitan General from a small clinic into a major hospital before mysteriously disappearing 15 years ago. But as Dr. Harrison stammered excuses, I noticed something alarming on the monitors. Mr. Chen's stable condition was rapidly deteriorating, and his next words confirmed my worst fears. Sarah, I'm afraid I've been poisoned. Code blue. I shouted, already moving to action as Mr. Chen's vitals plummeted. Amy, get me a toxicology kit. Dr. Harrison stood frozen, her perfect composure cracking. "Stop, you're not employed here anymore. You can't. Either help or get out of my way," I snapped, starting emergency protocols. Years of ER experience took over as I worked to stabilize him. Mr. Chen grabbed my hand weakly. "The notebook," he whispered. "Don't let her." But Dr. Harrison had already snatched the worn leather journal from the bedside table. As she flipped through it, her face shifted from confusion to shock to something darker. "Security," she said quietly, "clear the room. No one comes in or out without my authorization. That man needs immediate care," I protested. "Oh, we'll get care," she smiled coldly. "The best care money can buy. Just not from you." She held up the notebook. "Did you really think we wouldn't figure it out, Thomas? That your little undercover investigation wouldn't be noticed?" The security guards looked uncertain. "Dr. Harrison, he needs medical attention." "What he needs," she cut them off, "is to understand that some things should stay buried. Like what really happened to his father 15 years ago." Mr. Chen's monitors were screaming now. But as I moved to help him, one of the security guards grabbed my arm. Not the hospital's regular security. This man wore an earpiece I'd never seen before. "The poison," Mr. Chen managed between gasps. "It wasn't just me. Check the general supply." Horror dawned as I understood. I've been noticing increased complications in routine cases over the past month. Small things, patients taking longer to recover, unexpected reactions to standard medications. "You've been tampering with the hospital's medical supplies," I accused Dr. Harrison. "That's why you changed suppliers last month. That's why you've been restricting access to the pharmacy records." She laughed, a harsh, unfamiliar sound. "Tampering? I've been correcting a mistake. This hospital was supposed to be mine. Richard Chen promised it to me before his mysterious accident, but he left everything to his idealistic son instead." "So you've been slowly poisoning patients," I said in disbelief, "making the hospital look incompetent under the Chen family's ownership. Forcing them to sell," she finished smugly. "The board meets tomorrow to discuss the hospital's future. Once they see the mortality rates, the malpractice risks." She patted Mr. Chen's hand almost gently. "Don't worry, your death will be attributed to your homeless lifestyle." Such a tragic end to the Chen legacy. But she'd forgotten something crucial about emergency rooms. We never work alone. And while she'd been focused on me, Amy had slipped out during the chaos. The room's speaker crackled to life. "Code Black in progress. All personnel implement Protocol 17 immediately." Dr. Harrison's face went pale. "No, that's impossible. That protocol was deleted years ago, was it?" Mr. Chen's voice was weak but clear. "Or did you just think it was?" The light suddenly shifted to ultraviolet, revealing something shocking on Dr. Harrison's hands and clothes, traces of the very poison she'd been using glowing in unmistakable blue under the specialized light. But as security moved to detain her, she pulled out a syringe. "Nobody move. One step and he gets the full dose." What she didn't notice was the slight smile on Mr. Chen's face, or the fact that his deteriorating vital signs had suddenly stabilized. "Interesting syringe, Dr. Harrison," Mr. Chen said, suddenly sounding much stronger. "But I believe you'll find it's filled with saline." Dr. Harrison stared at the syringe in her hand, then at the monitors showing Mr. Chen's stabilizing vitals. "Impossible," she whispered. "The poison was neutralized about 20 minutes ago," I explained, finally understanding. "When I accidentally knocked over your coffee during the Code Blue. The antidote was in my ID badge dispenser, standard issue for all employees under Protocol 17. A protocol you thought you'd erased," Mr. Chen added, sitting up straighter. "Just like you thought you'd erase all traces of what happened to my father 15 years ago." The ultraviolet lights continued to reveal damning evidence, blowing traces of various compounds on Dr. Harrison's clothes, hands, and even her designer handbag. "You don't understand," she said desperately. "Your father was going to ruin everything. His healthcare for all policy was bankrupting us. When he refused to change course. You arranged his accident," Mr. Chen finished. "But you made one crucial mistake." Amy returned with a team of FBI agents, led by a familiar face. Dr. Richards, the dismissive doctor from earlier. Agent Sarah Chen, my supposed colleague, introduced herself. "FBI Healthcare Fraud Division. We've been building this case for months. Dr. Harrison's composure finally shattered completely. The whole thing was a setup. Not exactly, Mr. Chen explained. We knew someone was poisoning patients, but we didn't know who. My homeless admission was a calculated risk to draw out the perpetrator. But Sarah, Dr. Harrison looked at me with dawning horror. She's just a nurse. Is she? Mr. Chen smiled. Or is she the person who first noticed the pattern of complications? The one who started documenting everything in that notebook you're holding, which, by the way, is transmitting everything you've said to the FBI? The notebook in her hand suddenly beeped, its hidden camera capturing her expression as she realized the full scope of the trap. But as agents moved to arrest her, Dr. Harrison pressed a button on her phone. If I'm going down, I'm taking this whole hospital with me. Alarm systems began blaring throughout the building. On the security monitors, we could see emergency doors sealing themselves, trapping patients and staff inside. Dead man's switch, she laughed hysterically. In 15 minutes, every compromised medication in this hospital will be automatically administered through the electronic dispensing system. Hundreds of patients. Unless what? Agent Chen demanded. Unless the Chen family signs over the hospital, completely and permanently. Mr. Chen looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. Because what Dr. Harrison didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had one more secret of my own. Actually, I said quietly, removing my nurse's ID badge, the Chen family has already signed over the hospital. I pulled out another badge from my scrubs pocket, one that made Dr. Harrison's eyes go wide. Sarah Chen, MD, PhD, Chief Executive Officer, Metropolitan Health Systems. No, Dr. Harrison breathed. That's impossible. Not impossible, Mr. Chen smiled. Inevitable. You see, Sarah isn't just any nurse. She's my daughter, and more importantly, she's Richard Chen's granddaughter. The pieces clicked into place for everyone watching. Why I worked every position in the hospital, from janitor to nurse. Why I cared so much about every patient. I wasn't just learning the jobs, I was learning my grandfather's legacy from the ground up. The paperwork was finalized last week, I explained, accessing the hospital's main system with my true credentials. Which means your dead man's switch? It's trying to access a system you no longer control. On the monitors, we could see the emergency protocols reversing, doors unlocking, medication systems returning to normal operation. But your father, Dr. Harrison sputtered. Richard Chen died before he could. Before he could what? I asked. Change his will? Name you a successor? I pulled up documents on the nearest screen. Actually, he did something far more important that night. He recorded everything. Security footage began playing, 15 years old but crystal clear. It showed a younger Dr. Harrison in my grandfather's office, demanding control of the hospital. Healthcare is a business, she screamed in the footage, not your personal charity. Healthcare is a right, my grandfather's voice replied calmly. And this hospital will never prioritize profits over patients, not while a Chen is alive to prevent it. The footage showed what happened next. Dr. Harrison's rage, the poison she slipped into his drink, not realizing he'd already swapped the glasses. He survived, Mr. Chen explained. Barely, but he knew the hospital wasn't safe while she remained in power. So he went into hiding, protecting his legacy until the right moment. And that moment, I stepped closer to Dr. Harrison. Was finding someone who could rebuild Metropolitan General from the inside out. Someone who understood every job, every patient, every detail of what makes a hospital work. The FBI agents moved in to arrest her, but Dr. Harrison had one final card to play. She pulled out another phone, a dead man's switch for something far worse. One press, she threatened, and every media outlet gets proof of patient neglect under Chen family management. Your reputation will be destroyed. I almost laughed. You mean the carefully documented cases of neglect you orchestrated? The ones we've been tracking and correcting for months? Check your phone's signal. She pressed the button repeatedly, growing more frantic. Nothing happened. Hospital rooms have excellent signal blocking, I explained, especially when you know which frequencies to target. As they led her away in handcuffs, the morning shift arrived to find their hospital transformed. The homeless patient was now revealed as the long-lost Thomas Chen. The fired nurse was their new CEO. And most importantly, the hospital was returning to its original mission. 1 year later, Metropolitan General leads the country in patient care quality, I still work nursing shifts regularly, now with my real name badge. My father handles the business side while I focus on medicine, continuing my grandfather's legacy of putting patients first. Dr. Harrison serves her sentence in a minimum security prison, where she's required to provide basic medical care to fellow inmates. Sometimes the best karma is being forced to give the very thing you tried to deny others. The notebook that captured everything. It sits in my office, a reminder that the most important medical tool isn't technology or money. It's the willingness to care for every patient, regardless of their appearance or ability to pay. After all, you never know when the homeless person in your emergency room might turn out to be someone extraordinary, or more importantly, when an ordinary person might need extraordinary care. I never thought my sister's wedding would be the day everything changed. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong when my invitation arrived 3 days before the ceremony. Kitchen staff entrance only, it read in elegant gold script with a crude arrow drawn pointing to the back of the venue. My sister Victoria had always been the golden child. While I chose to work with underprivileged children as a teacher, she climbed a corporate ladder with perfectly manicured nails and designer heels. Our parents never let me forget the difference between us. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Mom would say, shaking her head at my simple clothes and practical shoes. "Look at her, engaged to James Anderson, CEO of Anderson Industries. And what do you have to show for yourself?" What they didn't know was that I had plenty to show, just not in ways they could understand. My small apartment might not be impressive, but the smiles of my students when they finally grasp a difficult concept, those are worth more than any luxury condo. Still, I went to the wedding. Victoria was my sister, after all, even as she'd grown more distant since getting engaged to James. I put on my best dress, not designer, but elegant in its simplicity, and drove my old Honda Civic to the Grand Plaza Hotel. The security guard at the main entrance took one look at my invitation and pointed to the back. "Service entrance only," he said gruffly. I found myself walking through the hotel's kitchen, dodging busy staff preparing for what was clearly going to be an extravagant reception. A hostess led me to a small table tucked behind a large pillar, practically hidden from the main celebration. Victoria's instructions were very clear, she said apologetically. Family members who might embarrass the couple should be kept out of sight. My hands trembled as I sat down. The table was set with plastic utensils, while I could see fine china gleaming on the other tables. A handwritten note in my sister's flowing script sat next to the plastic fork. "Know your place, little sister. Don't ruin this for me." I should have left then. Should have walked out and never looked back. But something made me stay. Perhaps the same stubborn determination that made me choose teaching over the corporate career my parents demanded. The ceremony was beautiful, of course. I watched from my hidden corner as Victoria floated down the aisle in a gown that probably cost more than my yearly salary. James Anderson waited at the altar, tall and distinguished in his custom tuxedo. He was handsome in that polished way that Grace magazine covers, but something about his expression seemed strained. Then he saw me. In that moment, as his eyes met mine across the crowded room, James Anderson, CEO of Anderson Industries, did something completely unexpected. He dropped his wedding ring. The small golden band made a distinct ping as it hit the marble floor and rolled, coming to rest right at my feet. As I bent to pick it up, memories from 15 years ago came flooding back. I was 19, working my way through college at a small coffee shop in Boston. He was 22, a regular customer who always ordered the same thing: black coffee, no sugar. Back then, he wasn't James Anderson, CEO. He was just Jamie, a graduate student with dreams of changing the world through ethical business practices. We'd spent 6 beautiful months together, sharing dreams and plans for the future. He wanted to revolutionize corporate responsibility. I wanted to teach. We talked about combining our passions somehow, maybe starting a foundation for education. Then he disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye. Just vanished from my life completely. I tried to find him, but it was like he never existed. A year later, I saw his photo in a business magazine. James Anderson, heir to Anderson Industries, engaged to a wealthy socialite. My heart broke all over again. Now here he was, staring at me like he'd seen a ghost, while my sister, his bride, watched in confusion. "Jamie," I whispered, holding out his wedding ring. The color drained from his face. Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows furrowed in confusion. James, darling, do you know my pathetic little sister? But James wasn't looking at his bride anymore. His eyes were fixed on my left hand, where I still wore the small silver ring he'd given me 15 years ago at that coffee shop in Boston. The one with the inscription, "To my Emma who taught me what really matters." Emma, he breathed, and in that one word, I heard 15 years of regret. Victoria's voice turned sharp. James, what's going on? Before he could answer, a distinguished older man rose from the front row. Richard Anderson Sr., James's father and founder of Anderson Industries. His face was thunderous as he approached the altar. Son, his voice carried across the suddenly silent room. Please tell me this isn't the same Emma. The same Emma. The words hung in the air like storm clouds. What did he mean, the same Emma? James straightened his spine, and for a moment, I saw the Jamie I used to know, the one who wanted to change the world. Yes, father, he said clearly. This is Emma Chen, the woman you paid $5 million to disappear 15 years ago. The room erupted in chaos. Victoria's perfect wedding dissolved into chaos. Guests began whispering, phones recording everything. My sister's face had turned an interesting shade of red that clashed horribly with her white dress. $5 million? I stood up slowly, my teacher's salary suddenly feeling very different. You paid me to disappear? Richard Anderson Sr. straightened his expensive tie. I paid your mother. She assured me you'd never contact James again. Said you agreed it was for the best. My mother. Of course. The pieces started falling into place. Mom's sudden insistence that I transfer universities that year, the mysterious deposit in my college fund, her constant reminders that James, was out of my league. You knew? I turned to my mother, who was trying to disappear into her seat. You took money to separate us? It was for your own good. Mom stood, her designer dress rustling. Look at you, a teacher living in a tiny apartment. James needed someone who could understand his world. Victoria was perfect for him. Perfect. James laughed bitterly. Perfect for the company image, you mean? Just like that socialite you tried to set me up with after Emma left. Did you tell Victoria about that too, father? How you've been orchestrating my relationships for 15 years? Victoria finally found her voice. James, darling, surely you're not comparing my worthless sister to me. I mean, look at her dress, it's not even designer. No, James said quietly, it's handmade. Emma always said the most valuable things are made with love, not money. He turned to me. You still make your own clothes. I nodded throat tight, he remembered. This is ridiculous. Richard Anderson Sr. boomed. Son, you have responsibilities. The merger with Victoria's father's company. The merger? James's voice turned cold. Is that what this wedding is really about, father? Another business deal? Victoria went pale. What do you mean, a business deal? Oh, didn't you know? James turned to her. Your father's company is failing. This marriage would save it. That's why he pushed so hard for you to date me, isn't it? Victoria's father jumped up. Now see here. But James wasn't finished. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a USB drive. I found some interesting documents last week, father, about what really happened 15 years ago, about the real reason you wanted Emma gone. Richard Anderson Sr.'s face turned ashen. James. Emma wasn't just my girlfriend back then, James continued, his voice carrying across the silent room. She was also volunteering at a youth center in South Boston, a youth center that was about to be demolished for one of our developments, a development that would have displaced hundreds of families. I remembered that fight. The community had been organizing protests, and I'd been helping them. James had been supportive, even talked about finding alternative locations for the development. Emma was organizing the community, James went on. She was good at it too, really good. The media was starting to pay attention. If that development had failed, it would have cost the company millions. But more importantly, it would have shown that Anderson Industries could be beaten. That's why she had to go, isn't it, father? Richard Anderson Sr. collapsed into his chair. So you paid her mother to make her disappear. James's voice was ice. You destroyed evidence of our relationship. You even donated to her new university to ensure she'd be accepted for a transfer. Also perfectly arranged. I did what was necessary for the company, his father muttered. The company? James laughed. The company that's now mine? He turned to the shocked guests. Oh yes, as of last week, I'm the majority shareholder. Father signed over control as an early wedding gift. Ironic, isn't it? He walked over to me, ignoring Victoria's squeak of protest. Emma, he said softly, I spent 15 years thinking you'd abandoned me. 15 years trying to be the son my father wanted. Then last week, I found these documents and I finally understood. I was going to stop the wedding. But then I saw your name on the guest list. Seated in the kitchen, I added dryly. Of course, he smiled. Victoria always did have a flair for drama. He turned to my sister. The wedding's off, by the way. You might want to check your father's company's financials before he tries to arrange another merger. Victoria screamed, throwing her bouquet at us. It hit a champagne pyramid instead, sending crystal glasses crashing to the floor. As my first act as CEO, James announced over the chaos. Anderson Industries is establishing a $100 million foundation for educational initiatives in underserved communities. He looked at me. We need a director who understands both education and community organizing. Interested? My mother jumped up. Emma, darling, I always knew you had potential. Save it, I cut her off. I think you've done enough helping for one lifetime. I turned to James. The foundation job, does it come with a corner office? He grinned. Only if you'll have dinner with me first. I know this little coffee shop in Boston. You can't do this, Victoria shrieked. Daddy, do something. But her father was already rushing out, phone in hand, probably calling his accountant. Richard Anderson Sr. stood up shakily. Son, think about what you're doing. Oh, I have, Father. For 15 years. James took my hand. The company's image could use some updating, don't you think? Less corporate greed, more social responsibility. Emma always said the measure of success isn't how much money you make, but how many lives you improve. My sister launched into another screaming fit, but I barely heard her. I was looking at the small silver ring I'd never taken off, remembering a young man in a coffee shop who wanted to change the world. You kept it, James said softly, touching the ring. You came back, I replied. 6 months later, the Anderson Chen Educational Foundation had already funded 50 community programs. Victoria eventually married a minor European prince who, ironically, believed in socialist policies. My parents suddenly became very interested in charitable giving, though their invitations to family events mysteriously get lost in the mail. Richard Anderson Sr. retired to a villa in Italy, though he did send a surprisingly heartfelt letter of apology. I framed it next to the newspaper article about our foundation's launch. As for me and James, we still go to that coffee shop in Boston. He still orders black coffee, no sugar. But now when we talk about changing the world, we actually do it. The small silver ring finally has a companion. A simple gold band that matches it perfectly. The inscription, to my James, who came back to what really matters. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting it right. The rain pounded against my car windows as I watched my husband David pack my belongings into cardboard boxes. From the driveway, I could see his mother, Patricia, standing smugly in our doorway, finally victorious after 2 years of trying to destroy our marriage. I can't believe you lied to me, David had said just hours earlier, his voice filled with hurt and betrayal. Mom showed me everything. Your car registration to a parking lot, your suspicious bank transfers, even photos of you sleeping in your car. You're not really a software engineer, are you? You're homeless, using me for money. If only he knew the truth. The suspicious transfers were to my father's medical research foundation. The car registration was for my corporate parking space at Zhang Industries' secure facility. And those photos of me sleeping in my car, taken during my overnight surveillance shifts, monitoring potential corporate espionage. But I couldn't tell him any of that. Not yet. Not while my father was still tracking down the people who had tried to destroy our company and kill him 5 years ago. David, please, I called out from my car. Just let me explain. Explain what, Sarah? Patricia's voice dripped with fake concern. How you fooled my son with your sad stories about your dead father? How you claim to work for some mysterious tech company but can't ever show him your office? She walked over to my car, designer heels clicking on the wet pavement. I had you investigated, you know. There's no record of a Sarah Zhang working as a software engineer anywhere in the city. Just a homeless woman with a history of dating wealthy men. I gripped my steering wheel tighter, fighting back tears. The investigation must have been what triggered our security protocols, erasing my digital footprint. Dad had warned me this might happen, that someone might start digging into my past. I know what you really are, Patricia continued, leaning close to my window. A gold-digging scammer who thought she could trap my son. Well, guess what? I win. David's filing for divorce, and you'll never see a penny of our family's money. What Patricia didn't know was that her family money was nothing compared to what I really was. The heir to Zhang Industries, one of the largest technology conglomerates in Asia. My dead father was very much alive, working undercover to expose a corporate espionage ring that had nearly destroyed us 5 years ago. As I watched David carry the last box inside, my secure phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. Operation complete. Coming home. Time to show them who you really are. Dad. Attached was a news alert that made my heart stop. Buri A. King. Tech billionaire Michael Zhang returns after 5 years. Zhang Industries stock soars. Patricia was still gloating at my window when she noticed the headline on my phone. Her face went from smug to shocked in an instant. Zhang Industries. But that's impossible. You're just a homeless. The sound of helicopter blades cut her off. A sleek black chopper with the Zhang Industries logo was descending onto their perfectly manicured lawn. The helicopter's landing kicked up a storm of debris across Patricia's prized rose garden. David rushed outside, shielding his eyes from the swirling wind as the aircraft's door opened. My father stepped out, looking exactly as he had 5 years ago. Elegant in his tailored suit, silver hair immaculate, that familiar kind smile on his face. Behind him, a team of serious-looking men in dark suits spread out across the property. Sarah, he called out, ignoring Patricia and David completely. Are you all right, sweetheart? I stepped out of my car, rain soaking through my clothes. Dad? Patricia's face cycled through shock, confusion, and fear. Dad? But you're dead. The investigation showed. Showed what, Mrs. Harrison? Dad's voice turned cold. That Sarah's father died in a car accident 5 years ago. That she has no employment records. No permanent address. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Your investigation was very thorough. Unfortunately, you were investigating a cover story. David stepped forward, looking lost. Cover story? What's going on? Perhaps, Dad suggested, we should continue this conversation inside. Unless Mrs. Harrison would prefer to discuss her connection to Harrison Technologies out here in the rain. Patricia's face went white. Harrison Technologies, our biggest competitor and the company behind the attempted takeover that have forced Dad into hiding. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. Dad pulled out a tablet, displaying documents that made Patricia sway on her feet. Really? Then perhaps you can explain why you've been meeting with your brother, James Harrison, every Tuesday at the Crown Hotel. The same James Harrison who orchestrated the attempt on my life 5 years ago. David's head snapped toward his mother. Mom? What is he talking about? It's all lies. Patricia shrieked. She's the liar. Living in her car, pretending to be poor. Actually, I finally spoke up, my voice steady. I never pretended to be poor. You just assumed. Those photos of me sleeping in my car? I was monitoring your meetings with Harrison Technologies executives. The parking lot registration, it's for the secure underground facility where we've been tracking your brother's corporate espionage operation. Security footage began playing on Dad's tablet, showing Patricia passing confidential documents to her brother, planning the takedown of Zhang Industries from within, using her son's marriage to get close to the heir of their biggest rival. You see, David, Dad explained gently, your mother isn't just a concerned parent. She's been part of a corporate espionage ring for years, and when you married my daughter. But before he could finish, Patricia made a desperate dash for her car. She didn't get far. The serious-looking men in suits moved with practiced efficiency, blocking her escape. Mrs. Harrison, a familiar voice called out, or should I say, Agent Harrison, I believe we have some questions about your CIA credentials. Federal agents emerged from unmarked cars surrounding the house. But as they moved to arrest Patricia, I noticed something strange in her eyes. Not fear, but triumph. You really think this is over? She laughed. You have no idea what's really going on. Why do you think I pushed so hard to end this marriage today specifically? Dad's phone suddenly buzzed with multiple alerts. His face darkened as he read them. "Sarah," he said urgently, "check the house. Now." Because today wasn't just any day. It was the day Zhang Industries was supposed to announce its revolutionary quantum computing breakthrough. And Patricia's desperate scheme to separate me from David suddenly made terrible sense. I raced into the house with Dad's security team, heading straight for my home office. The door was ajar. It had been locked when I left. Inside, my secure laptop was missing and my backup drives were gone. "Looking for these?" David's voice came from behind me. He stood in the doorway, holding my laptop and drives, his face unreadable. "David, please," I said carefully, "you don't understand what you're holding." "Actually," he replied, "I understand perfectly." He pressed a sequence of keys on my laptop, and my heart stopped as I recognized the initialization sequence for our quantum encryption prototype. "How did you know the sequence?" He smiled sadly. "Because I helped design it. Project Phoenix, ring any bells, Sarah? Or should I call you Agent John?" Dad appeared behind him, and for the first time in my life, I saw real fear in his eyes. "Your counterintelligence," Dad said quietly. "CIA deep cover, assigned to watch both sides, my daughter and your mother." David nodded. 5 years tracking Harrison Technologies' espionage. 3 years documenting Zhang Industries' quantum computing program. 2 years, his voice caught, 2 years falling in love with my target. The room felt like all the air had been sucked out. "Was any of it real?" I whispered. "All of it," David replied. "Every moment. That's what makes this so hard." He turned to my father. "Mr. Zhang, your quantum computing breakthrough isn't just revolutionary, it's dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could crack every military encryption on the planet." "We developed it for medical research," Dad protested, "for predicting protein folding, finding cures." "And what happens when someone like Harrison Technologies steals it?" David countered. "Your sister-in-law, Patricia, isn't just a corporate spy. She's a front for an international technology cartel. They've been playing both sides, Zhang Industries and Harrison Technologies, waiting for this moment." Suddenly, more alarms started blaring. On my office screens, security alerts flashed from Zhang Industries facilities worldwide. "Right now," David continued, "simultaneous raids are happening at every Zhang facility globally. The quantum computing data is being seized by international authorities. Your technology is being classified as a national security risk." "And my mother?" I asked, pieces finally clicking into place. "Deep cover CIA, like me. Her arrest outside is theater, giving her cover to escape with the real target." "Which is?" David's face softened. "You, Sarah. They don't just want the technology. They want the person who can rebuild it from memory." That's when the house's lights went out and gas started seeping through the ventilation system. "I'm sorry," David said, pulling on a gas mask, "but you're both coming with us." As my vision started to blur, I saw more figures in tactical gear entering the room. But through my fading consciousness, I noticed something odd. Dad was smiling. "David," he said calmly, "did you really think we didn't know? About you? About Patricia? About everything?" The last thing I saw before passing out was Dad pressing his watch and the floor beneath us starting to move. When I regained consciousness, I wasn't in a CIA black site as expected. Instead, I was in a familiar place, the real Zhang Industries Command Center, 50 stories beneath our Hong Kong headquarters. "Welcome back, sweetheart," Dad's voice came from nearby. I opened my eyes to see him sitting calmly at a control panel. Next to him, bound to a chair but very much awake, was David. "How?" David struggled against his restraints. "The gas, the tactical team. We're all mine," a new voice said. My mother walked in, very much alive despite having supposedly died when I was a child. "Did you really think the CIA was the only one who could run a deep cover operation, Agent Sullivan?" Mom looked exactly as I remembered, just older and somehow more formidable. She was wearing a Zhang Industries executive suit, not the tactical gear from earlier. "You see," Dad explained, "we've known about the CIA's interest in our quantum computing project from the beginning, just as we've known about Harrison Technologies' infiltration attempts. So we created a triple-blind operation." The screens around us lit up, showing years of surveillance footage. David's recruitment, Patricia's meetings, everything. Sarah's homelessness was indeed a cover, Mom continued, but not for what you thought. While you were investigating her, she was allowing you to investigate her, all while running the real quantum computing project from a different facility. The prototype you seized, I finally spoke up, my voice hoarse, was a decoy. The real breakthrough happened 6 months ago. We just needed to flush out all the players. David's face showed the first crack in his professional demeanor. 6 months, when we got married. I did love you, I said softly. That part was real, but I also knew who you were from the day we met. Because I chose you, David, not the other way around. Agent Sullivan has an impressive record, Mom added. Top of his class at Langley, perfect deep cover credentials. Exactly the kind of person we wanted watching over our daughter while we completed the real project. Dad pressed a button, and screens worldwide showed Zhang Industries stock soaring as we announced not just a quantum computing breakthrough, but a complete quantum encryption platform, one that would make unauthorized surveillance impossible. So you see, Dad smiled, everyone played their part perfectly. The CIA got their operation thinking they were shutting down dangerous technology. Harrison Technologies thought they were closing in on their target. And he looked at me proudly. We changed the future of global communications. What happens now? David asked quietly. I stood up, walking over to him. That depends on you. Because while everything else was calculated, falling in love with you wasn't part of the plan. And now you have a choice. Mom handed me a key to his restraints and a Zhang Industries security badge. You can go back to the CIA, report what happened. Watch your career disappear as they realize how completely they were outplayed. Or, I held up the badge, you can join us. For real this time, no more covers, no more lies. Why would I trust you now? He asked. I leaned in close, whispering, because I'm giving you the one thing nobody else has, the truth, and a choice. 1 year later, Zhang Industries' quantum platform has revolutionized secure communications. David runs our counterintelligence division using his CIA experience to protect what we built. Patricia and her brother are in federal custody. It turns out even the CIA doesn't like being double-crossed. As for me, I still drive the same car, but now everyone knows who I really am. Sometimes on late nights at the office, David and I look back at our wedding photos and laugh about how many spies were in attendance, his, mine, and at least 3 other agencies. Mom says true love can survive anything, even international espionage. Dad says trust is built on truth, even if that truth takes time to be revealed. Me, I believe the best operations are like the best relationships, built on understanding not just who someone appears to be, but who they really are beneath all the covers and codes. And sometimes, the greatest security isn't in what you hide, but in what you choose to reveal.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and I'm 63 years old. My husband passed away about 6 years ago, but I'm still working. I have 2 children, and 5 of my grandkids live in different states across the country. They each have their own families, and I feel truly blessed to have such a large family. One of my kids, Kyle, still lives in our hometown. He went to the local community college where he met his wife, Julie. I liked Julie well enough, but I didn't feel my opinion mattered as long as Kyle was happy. They got married shortly after and continued their education, each pursuing careers in their fields. Once they were both settled in their jobs, they decided to start a family, and I was thrilled at the thought of having another grandchild to spoil. However, Julie set strict boundaries when it came to visits. She controlled when I could visit and how long I could stay. While I understood this when Daniel, their first child, was a baby, it never really changed, even when he was 5. I tried not to let it bother me, thinking every family is different. Over the next 15 years, I didn't get to spend as much time with Daniel as I would have liked. We never grew as close as I had hoped, but we did share a love for books, so I always bought him books when I visited. One day at work, I received an unexpected call from Daniel. This was unusual, since we rarely spoke outside of family gatherings. I did my best to connect with him, as I had with my other grandchildren, but he seemed distant. "Grandma, are you free to talk?" he asked. "Of course, honey, anytime." "Is everything okay?" "No, no." "Why are you crying? Did you get hurt? Is anyone at home who can help you?" "Mom and Dad are here, but, do Do you need me to call them for you? No. I called you because I need your help. My help? What's going on, darling? I need you to save me, Grandma. Save you? What do you mean? She's not as sweet and nice as she acts. She's really mean to me when no one else is around. Suddenly, I heard someone coming up the stairs. I have to go. Please don't tell them I called. Bye. I was left shocked and confused. As far as I knew, Julie was one of the kindest people. How could Daniel say such things about her? I didn't want to believe him at first. Maybe he was upset over something like being grounded. Daniel had always been a bit mischievous, according to both Julie and Kyle. But something in my gut told me he wasn't joking. The call haunted me for days, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. After some time, I decided to buy a hidden camera. I felt uneasy about spying, but I convinced myself that if Daniel trusted me enough to call, I owed it to him to help. If I found nothing, I'd just remove the camera. But if there was something wrong, I'd figure out what to do next. I hoped it would be a simple misunderstanding, and a long talk would set everything right. The camera arrived a few days later, and I set it up, glad to see it had both live and recorded footage that I could access through an app on my phone. After making sure everything was in place, I called Kyle. Hello, sweetie. How's everything? Everything's great, Mom. What about you? Same old, same old. I was wondering if I could come by one day. We haven't seen each other in a while. Of course. How about this Sunday? That works, but should I check with Julie if it's okay? I used to hate it when Dad made plans without asking me. But don't worry, Julie will be happy to have you over. See you then, Mom. I'll be there around 6 o'clock. I was glad to be going to Kyle's, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had other motives now. I was still excited to spend time with my son. It wasn't often that I got to see my family, so it felt special to have one of my children living in the same town. The weekend arrived quickly, and I made sure to get ready early. I decided to bring something along, so I went to the grocery store to pick up a nice bottle of wine and bought a couple of books for Daniel, knowing how much he loved to read. When I arrived at Kyle's house, I was warmly greeted by all three of them. But it was Daniel's look that caught my attention. He stared at me with such a sense of relief that I couldn't help but feel concerned again. Since that first phone call, I hadn't heard from him, so I had no idea what was going on. I spent the next couple of hours chatting with Kyle and Julie. We had dinner, drank wine, and enjoyed each other's company. At some point, Daniel excused himself and went to his room, likely because we were talking about things that didn't interest him. I decided to go and spend time with him. Julie tried to subtly stop me, but I insisted. I hadn't visited in a long time, and I wanted to spend some one-on-one time with my grandson. Kyle told Julie to let me go, and I headed up to Daniel's room. Once inside, I closed the door behind me. I walked over to him and handed him the books I had brought. We talked about them for a while, and since he seemed excited, I let him ramble on. I didn't bring up what he had mentioned during our phone call earlier. I wanted him to talk about it if he was ready, not push him. Our conversation shifted to other topics, like what was going on in our lives. While he was telling me about his school and other things, he grabbed a notebook and wrote something in it. When he showed it to me, it said, "Mom's listening. Can't talk about anything." I couldn't tell if he was serious or just paranoid, but I went along with it. We continued talking, and I quietly wrote my plan in the notebook. I told him I had brought a hidden camera and asked if I could set it up in his room. He quickly agreed. I found a good spot to place the camera, one that gave me a clear view of the room. After starting the recording, I checked my phone to make sure the camera was working. I sat with Daniel a little longer, then told him it was getting late and I needed to head home. Before leaving, I purposely left my scarf behind as an excuse to return if needed. As I headed downstairs, I heard footsteps quickly moving away from the door, which made me wonder if Daniel was right all along. I hugged him goodbye, said my farewells to Kyle and Julie, and then went home. That night, I was tired but couldn't resist checking the footage from the camera. I stayed up for an hour, watching it, just in case something happened. Kyle walked into Daniel's room and asked what we had talked about, and Daniel told him. That was it. I finally went to bed, exhausted from the day. The next morning, I rushed to work and didn't check the camera again until I knew Daniel would be back from school. Again, there was nothing of concern, and I started to think maybe Daniel had been lying, but I decided to give it one more day. If I didn't find anything, I would visit when neither Kyle nor Julie was home and ask Daniel to give me the camera back. That night, as I watched the footage while reading, I finally discovered what Daniel had been trying to tell me. Julie entered the room with a stick in her hand, with Kyle following behind her. I quickly unmuted the video. Julie asked Daniel what he had done all day and made him describe everything in extreme detail. Whenever he stuttered, she sharply asked if he was lying. If she suspected he was, she made him hold out his palms and hit his knuckles 3 to 5 times with the stick. I watched in growing horror as Julie hit Daniel more and more frequently. Daniel was sobbing, and Kyle just stood there, watching. I was filled with a deep sense of disappointment and disgust. I had raised my children gently, believing that kids are smarter than we often give them credit for. They can understand when things are explained to them. I couldn't understand why Kyle just stood by, letting his son get hit for no reason. I wanted to rush over and stop them, but what would I say? It would be strange for me to show up again, just a day after my last visit. Then I remembered that I had left my scarf there, which could be the perfect excuse to go back, but I needed to wait another day, to make sure I could see Daniel again. I quickly grabbed my phone and called Kyle. Hey, Mom, is everything okay? Yes, no worries. I hope I'm not disturbing you. No, Julie and I were just saying goodnight to Daniel. Alright then, I just wanted to tell you that I think I left my scarf in Daniel's room last night. I remember setting it down and forgot to pick it up. Do you think I could swing by tomorrow to grab it? Why don't I just bring it over now? No, I'm too tired. I'm about to fall asleep. It's been a long day at work, and I can barely hold the phone right now. Alright then, how about tomorrow evening? I can't. I have a game night with friends tomorrow. Well, Julie and I won't be back until the evening. Why don't you come by the day after? I really need that scarf for tomorrow. We're having a gathering. Okay, you could come by in the afternoon. Daniel will be home. Lovely, I'll be there around 3. Good night, Mom. My heart raced as I ended the call. I'd come up with a lie on the spot, but at least my call had distracted Kyle and Julie enough for them to focus on what I said rather than continuing to hurt Daniel. Before they left Daniel's room, I heard Julie tell him that he wouldn't be getting any food until dinner the next day. I was appalled, but sadly, I knew they would follow through with it. The next day, I took the day off from work and prepared myself for the conversation with Daniel. I was sure he wouldn't want to stay there, but I needed to hear it from him. I stopped to pick up some food on the way over. When I arrived, Daniel looked like he might faint. He was weak and exhausted. Julie had really made him go without food. I quickly gave him the food, and he devoured it, eating with a desperation that broke my heart. I felt so sorry for him, but I knew I had to help make things better. When he finished eating, I spoke to him softly. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Did you see everything that happened? Yes, darling. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I had no idea. It's okay. Mom seems like the nicest person, but has she always been this way? The beatings only started recently, but the starving has been going on for a while. I don't understand why Kyle isn't doing anything. He's too scared of Mom. He just follows her, does everything she says, everything she wants, she gets. Honey, I'm so sorry you've been dealing with this, but I need to understand. Why didn't you eat anything at school? Mom doesn't send me to school on days she doesn't let me eat. I stay home. Mom measures the food in the house, and if even a little bit is missing when she gets back, I get punished more. So she's starving you and hurting your education? I'm going to do my best to help you, okay? I need you to tell me right now, if you want to come live with me. I'll take care of everything, and I'll keep you away from Mom and Dad. Of course, Grandma, anywhere away from here would be great. I promise I'll be good, just please take me away. I promise I will, darling, but it'll take some time. Can you handle staying here a little longer? Yeah, I can. I've been here for 15 years, so I can wait a bit more. I carefully took away all the wrappers and made sure there were no traces of food left behind. I didn't want Julie to make things worse for Daniel. We cleaned up the crumbs and double-checked the room to make sure it looked just as it had before. Afterward, I went home and called Kyle to thank him for being cooperative and letting me pick up my scarf. I reached out to a good friend who worked in family law and explained the situation. He told me that fighting for custody would be a long, difficult battle. While I might be able to secure temporary custody, Julie could change her behavior and regain custody with little evidence. It seemed that the odds were against me, but I had a plan. I could use the evidence I had gathered to make Julie agree to let me become Daniel's legal guardian. Julie worked as a counselor at a middle school, and I knew she wouldn't want her child abuse becoming public, as it would ruin her career prospects. I continued to monitor the footage carefully, gathering more evidence and preparing the necessary paperwork for a guardianship transfer. I waited until the weekend to visit Kyle without giving notice. When Kyle opened the door, he seemed surprised. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." Julie appeared at the top of the stairs, and Kyle hesitated. "I don't think now's a good time." "Why, what's going on?" "Just family stuff." "Why are you suddenly visiting so often? Can't I visit my son?" "I didn't think I needed special permission for that." "No, I didn't mean it like that. It's just that you've taken an interest in us this week, and it's a bit weird since you rarely drop by." "It's not weird. I only came over today because I have something very important to talk about with you both." As we spoke, I heard loud crying coming from Daniel's room. I could tell something was wrong, so I pushed past Kyle and entered the house. I couldn't just stand by. I rushed straight to Daniel's room. Bursting through the door, Daniel was sobbing, clutching his face, while Julie stood there, breathing heavily, glaring at him with such malice that it sent a shiver down my spine. I immediately ran to Daniel and asked if he was okay. He hugged me tightly and wailed into my ear. Julie huffed and walked away without saying a word. As Daniel calmed down, I saw his cheek was red and swollen, his knuckles were bleeding, and there were welts on his arms from the stick. A deep rage built inside me. How could anyone hit a child so violently? No child deserved that. I went downstairs to the kitchen, grabbed a bag of frozen veggies, and brought it back to Daniel to help reduce the swelling on his cheek. Once he seemed stable, I told him that I would take him with me. I asked him to pack as many things as he could, and then I went downstairs to confront Julie and Kyle. Julie looked furious, and Kyle seemed like he wanted to disappear. "How dare you barge into our home like this?" "Well, isn't it a good thing I did? You were hitting your child. What happens in my family is none of your business. Your child is my grandson, and he's part of my family too. You're hurting him, and I can't let that continue. He may be your grandson, but you don't live with him. You don't know what a brat he is. I'm just disciplining him." "Who cares if he's a brat? He's a child, and there are many other ways to discipline a child without hitting them. You of all people should know this." "I don't believe in that gentle parenting nonsense. Leave me and my family alone." "I'm afraid I can't do that." I handed Julie the papers to transfer guardianship to me. Both she and Kyle stared at the papers, confused. "You both have to sign, or I'll release proof of you hitting Daniel." "What do you mean by proof?" "I set up a hidden camera in Daniel's room last week. I have all the proof I need. Neither of your jobs will appreciate what you've done, especially you, Julie. If you want to keep your career intact, I suggest you sign those papers." "You were spying on us? That's a gross violation of our privacy." "I only acted on information I had. I needed to make sure Daniel was safe." "Mom, don't do this to us. Give us another chance. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." "I don't want to hear it. I'm very disappointed in you, Kyle. I raised you to be better than this. You're just as guilty as Julie, if not more. I'm taking Daniel with me, and I expect these papers to be signed. If not, you know what will happen." They didn't put up a fight. As Daniel and I left, I took him to get dinner and ice cream, trying my best to comfort him. I gave him a safe space to share his feelings without fear. In the following weeks, I was granted legal guardianship of Daniel. Julie and Kyle claimed they planned to move to a different state and didn't want to disrupt Daniel's education, which they used as the reason for transferring guardianship. They did end up moving, and I was relieved. Daniel is doing much better now. He's happier knowing he won't run into his parents for a long time. He's one of the kindest and sweetest kids I know, and he thanks me every day for what I did for him. I intend to keep my promise to always protect him. Thank you for listening. I'm going on a business trip. Don't you dare call me unless it's a real emergency, my husband yelled as he hastily packed for his weekend away. All I had done was mention that I'd only contact him in case of an emergency, but his irritation was palpable. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, his usual sign of disdain. Of course, I knew the truth. This wasn't a business trip at all. He was off on a weekend getaway with his mistress. "If you keep bothering me with your nonsense, I'll claim emotional distress and sue you," he added, his threats as absurd as they were cruel. Over time, It had become clear that John had lost all sense of empathy. He ignored our sick daughter, prioritized his own selfish desires, and neglected his family entirely. I didn't dare stand up to him. I was just trying to protect myself and our children. On the day of his so-called business trip, fate intervened. I accidentally learned that John had been in a severe car accident. His earlier command echoed in my mind, "Don't contact me under any circumstances." A part of me felt conflicted, but his indifference had long taught me to prioritize my own peace of mind. Whatever happened to him was no longer my concern. Besides, I was holding on to a secret of my own, something he didn't know and never would. A wry smile crept onto my face as I turned off my phone, shutting out his chaos. My name is Mary. I'm 34 years old, a handmade artist working from home. Creating accessories and crafts has been my passion since childhood. I turned it into a hobby, then a side business after leaving my job to raise our 2 children, Ethan, an 8th grader, and Claire, a 6th grader. Once Claire started school, I had the chance to revive my craft, selling my creations online. John, my husband, is 2 years older than me. We first met in high school and reconnected at a reunion years later. He works in construction management, a field he entered inspired by his father's legacy. His father had spent decades at the same company, continuing even past retirement, and John idolized him for it. Unfortunately, that admiration translated into John putting his career above all else, including his family. John's parents, both in their 70s, were active and frequently dropped by unannounced. While they claimed to visit out of affection, I often found their presence intrusive. From the beginning, my relationship with them had been strained. They made tactless comments about my work, belittling my handmade crafts as not being real work. The worst, however, was their lack of respect for our daughter Claire's severe shellfish allergy. If she ingests even a trace, it could be life-threatening. Yet they dismissed her condition as a picky eating habit and even tried sneaking shellfish into her meals. "It's all in her head," they would say. "If you just expose her to it gradually, she'll outgrow it. Allergies are just overblown nonsense." I had to be constantly vigilant. Whenever they visited, I ensured they were never alone with Claire, but their behavior became so reckless that I begged John to intervene. "Your parents are putting Claire in danger," I pleaded. "Please ask them to stop coming over unannounced." "They're just trying to help," he replied dismissively. "They care about Claire. You're overreacting. Mary, stop worrying so much." John always sided with his parents, leaving me to shoulder the household responsibilities alone. He was exhausted from work, and I became his emotional punching bag. The only person who truly understood my plight was Ethan. Though he didn't have allergies himself, he adored Claire and went out of his way to help, checking food labels and standing up to his grandparents. One day, after John left for work, I received a midday call. "Can you clean my parents' house today? Mom's at her exercise class, and they need it done before she gets back. The kids are at school, and you're at home doing nothing, so it's no big deal," he said casually. "I have work too, John," I reminded him. "Don't act high and mighty about your little hobby, just do it." He hung up without waiting for my response, once again dismissing my time and effort as inconsequential. Resigned, I went to his parents' house. As I entered, the phone rang. Assuming it was a sales call, I answered. To my surprise, it was someone from John's company. His father had left critical documents at home, and they needed them urgently. They'd been trying to reach John's mother, but there was no response. I grabbed the documents from the table and decided to deliver them to the office. Why do I always get dragged into these things? I thought, exhausted by the constant demands. Even though it was just a short drive, the weight of it felt overwhelming. When I arrived at the company, I was greeted by one of John's coworkers, the same person who had called earlier. I recognized him from our wedding and the occasional times I had picked John up from work events. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown," he said sincerely. I didn't want to risk offending Mr. Brown's pride by calling him directly, so I tried his parents' house instead. "I'm glad you were there to help." His words seemed genuine, and he asked me to keep the matter a secret from John's father. As I turned to leave, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. "By the way, how's your daughter doing?" John mentioned her allergy. He said he's been taking days off to care for her. I froze. My mind raced as I tried to process what he had just said. John hadn't taken a single day off for Claire. He had gone to work as usual. Thinking it was a misunderstanding, I pressed for details. It turned out John had been telling his coworkers that he was taking time off to care for our daughter. My head spun as I drove home, trying to make sense of it all. When I arrived, the kids were already asleep. Hoping to calm my nerves, I switched on the TV. but I couldn't focus. Late that night, John finally came home, his usual irritated demeanor in full force. "You didn't clean my parents' house today," he snapped. Mom called to complain. I had completely forgotten about returning to his parents' house after visiting his office. "I went to their house, but then I had to take something to your father's office," I explained. John's eyebrow twitched, and he scratched his head, a nervous habit of his. His reaction only made me more suspicious. "Who told you to go to the company?" he asked, his tone unusually sharp. I could see the worry in his eyes, but I decided to play dumb. "No one. I just dropped off the documents and left. I forgot about the cleaning after that." John sighed, his tension visibly easing. "Whatever. Just apologize to Mom tomorrow. I'm tired and going to bed." As he walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. That night, as I lay awake, I pieced together the clues: the lie about taking time off, his constant absences, and his overreactions. It all pointed to one thing: John was cheating on me. And if he was using Claire's allergy as an excuse to cover for his infidelity, I couldn't forgive him. Claire had already endured so much: teasing at school, being excluded from social activities, and constantly having to explain her condition. Ethan and I worked hard to support her, both emotionally and physically. Meanwhile, John dismissed her struggles as trivial while exploiting them for his own selfish purposes. I was consumed with anger and frustration, unable to sleep that night. By morning, I had made a decision. I hired a private investigator to uncover the truth. It hurt to spend the money I had painstakingly earned from my online business, but I needed to know. Each day, I anxiously awaited the investigator's report. A few weeks later, the results confirmed my worst fears. John was cheating. He was skipping work 2 to 3 times a week to meet his mistress, driving her around, and even spending nights at hotels with her. She was young, likely in her 20s, with long black hair and a confident, sharp look. She was stunning, beautiful enough to catch anyone's eye. Seeing the photos still left me speechless. Despite everything, it hurt to see the life we had built together crumble, but instead of sadness, I felt anger and disgust. Determined to move forward, I gathered more evidence with the investigator and consulted a lawyer to prepare for divorce. I started learning about alimony, child support, and custody. My thoughts were no longer on the past I shared with John, but on the future I would build for myself and my children. A few days later, John came home late again. "I have to work this weekend," he said nonchalantly. "The next job site is far away, so I'm going there for a preliminary survey. I'll be back on Sunday." I knew it was another lie. His coworker had told me weeks ago that John's role had shifted to an office-based position. Overnight trips were no longer part of his job. He was likely planning another weekend getaway with his mistress. "I see," I replied calmly, "but if anything happens while you're away, I'll call you immediately. Claire's been under the weather, and with your parents going on a trip, we don't have anyone else to rely on. Don't call me for anything trivial," he snapped, his irritation evident. "I'll be busy working." He stormed off to the bedroom, but his overreaction only fueled my suspicions. That night, I retrieved his credit card from its hiding spot, annoyed that he might be spending money on his mistress. Logging into the credit card company's website, I entered the password. John always used the same one. Logging into John's credit card account was surprisingly easy. As I scanned the charges, one stood out: a transaction at a luxury inn located in a secluded mountain area accessible only by car. My heart sank. I looked up the inn online, and it was exactly the kind of place John would try to pass off as a gift for his parents. But I knew better. His parents were vacationing at a seaside hotel, not a mountain retreat. John was clearly planning a getaway with his mistress, so eager to enjoy the trip that he had lashed out at me earlier to ensure nothing disrupted his plans. Disgusted by his behavior, I decided to take the next step toward freedom. I opened an apartment rental website and scheduled viewings for the weekend. By the time Saturday morning came, John was gone, leaving with an overnight bag and barely saying a word. Claire watched him leave from the breakfast table, and Ethan, still recovering from a cold, lounged on the couch. After tidying up, I got ready to leave. "I'll be back later. Take care of each other, okay?" I said. "Where are you going, Mom?" Claire asked. "I'll tell you later," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Ethan, keep an eye on Claire." "Got it," he mumbled. I planned to tell them about the divorce after securing a new place for us. John's bond with the kids was weak at best. Ethan resented his father's dismissive attitude toward Claire's allergy, so I doubted they would be shocked by the news. With John's parents also out of town, it felt like the perfect opportunity to take action. I spent all of Saturday viewing apartments and, by evening, finally found one that met all my needs. It was too late to sign the contract, so I planned to return the next day. As I drove home, I wondered if John was enjoying his romantic getaway. The thought enraged me, but I reassured myself that I was making progress. The next morning, I left the kids at home again and went to finalize the apartment lease. The process went smoothly, and I signed the contract, paying the necessary fees. It felt like I'd been hemorrhaging money lately, on the investigator, the lawyer, and now this apartment, but I told myself it was an investment in a better future. Just as I was leaving the real estate office, my phone rang. It was Ethan. "What's wrong, Ethan?" I asked, hearing panic in his voice. "Mom, it's Claire. She collapsed. We're on the way to the hospital in an ambulance." I could hear the wail of sirens in the background. My hands trembled as I clutched the phone. Ethan passed it to a paramedic, who explained that Claire was in anaphylactic shock. My mind reeled. How had this happened? I had been so careful with her meals, ensuring there were no allergens. Shaken, I rushed to my car. My hands were trembling so much that I struggled to start the engine. Realizing I needed help, I reluctantly called John. If he was checking out of the inn by now, he should have been reachable, but no matter how many times I tried, he didn't pick up. My frustration surged, but it also grounded me. Taking a deep breath, I drove straight to the hospital. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting outside the examination room. "Is Claire okay?" I asked, my voice quivering. The doctor approached, his expression calm. "Mrs. Brown, your daughter is stable now. Her blood pressure dropped significantly, but we managed to stabilize her. She's resting peacefully." A wave of relief washed over me, and tears welled in my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered, overcome by the close call. "Your son acted quickly by calling for an ambulance," the doctor added. "He's a remarkable young man." Ethan looked down, avoiding my gaze, but I couldn't have been prouder. As the doctor explained Claire's condition and the need for hospitalization, I left briefly to retrieve her insurance card. While sorting through the documents at home, I noticed John's card was still there. If he was on an overnight trip, shouldn't he have taken it? I didn't have time to dwell on it. After grabbing the card, I rushed back to the hospital, confirmed Claire's stable condition, and began the admission paperwork. As I filled out the forms, Ethan nudged my arm and pointed to the TV in the hospital lobby. "Mom, look at that," he said. On the screen was breaking news about a single-car accident on a mountain road. The footage showed a vehicle that had crashed through a guardrail, its front mangled, but the rear, where the license plate was visible, relatively intact. Ethan and I recognized the car immediately. It was John's. The report mentioned that the two passengers had been taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. My stomach turned at the confirmation that he had been with another woman. Ethan didn't say anything further, but I wondered if he had already guessed I was planning to divorce his father. The shame of letting things spiral to this point weighed on me. Just then, my phone rang again. It was John. I hesitated, remembering his dismissive words from earlier. "Don't call me for anything trivial." Now, desperate and likely scared, he was the one blowing up my phone. The irony was unbearable. After letting the call ring out, I silenced the phone. This isn't trivial, but it's not my problem anymore, I thought. I finished the paperwork and took Ethan home, where John's parents were waiting outside despite the late hour. I was already exhausted from the ordeal with Clara. Dealing with John's parents was the last thing I wanted. I left Ethan in the car and approached them. "Mary, where have you been? This is an emergency. We've been trying to reach you," John's mother snapped. I had my phone off. I replied curtly. "John's been in a car accident. He needed surgery and will be in the hospital for 2 weeks. He called us when you didn't answer," she continued, her voice rising with accusation. "Oh, is that so?" I said, feigning indifference. "That's all you have to say? How can you be so calm when your husband is in such a serious condition? Do you even care about him?" Their words ignited a simmering anger that I had been holding back for far too long. This was it. I was done. "Clara was rushed to the hospital today in an ambulance," I began, my voice trembling but steady with resolve. "She had a severe allergic reaction, and her life was at risk. I know you've heard this before, so don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about." I pulled the evidence from my bag, the rice crackers that had nearly cost Clara her life, and held them out. Their expressions changed immediately, a clear sign of guilt. They scratched their heads nervously, a habit they shared with John whenever they were caught off guard. "Ethan told me you came to our house today, claiming you were bringing back souvenirs from your trip. He said you showed him the usual rice crackers that Clara eats, but after Ethan left, Clara had a severe reaction in the living room. I gestured to the crackers. These aren't the usual kind. They're a limited edition flavor containing shrimp, but the box doesn't indicate that. Did you give Clara the shrimp crackers and then hide the evidence? John's mother stammered. We thought it would be fine. It's just in her head. I cut her off. I spoke to a lawyer. Intentionally giving someone an allergen when you know they're allergic could be considered assault. That's ridiculous. We were just thinking of you when we bought them. Thinking of me? My voice rose. You knowingly bought something dangerous and nearly killed my daughter. I'll never forgive you for this. Their protests fell on deaf ears as I unleashed the anger I had bottled up for so long. We came to tell you about John's accident, not argue. John's father interrupted, desperate to change the subject. I don't care about his accident, I said coldly. He was on a trip with his mistress. I handed them the evidence I had gathered from the private investigator. Their stunned silence confirmed they had no defense. I'm filing for divorce and suing all of you for damages, I concluded. At that moment, a police car pulled up. I had asked Ethan to call the authorities on our way home. The officers approached John's parents, requesting them to come in for questioning regarding potential assault charges. 2 weeks later, I received a call from the hospital where John was staying. The staff informed me that John had been demanding I visit. Reluctantly, I went, knowing it was the last loose end to tie up. You useless wife, you've ignored all my calls, John barked the moment I entered his room. I didn't answer because you told me not to call you for anything trivial. I figured you were busy, I said with a mocking smile. You took my credit card and insurance card, didn't you? Go to the front desk and pay my bill. I didn't bring your card. Maybe ask your parents for help. They're in jail because of you. The absurdity of his complaints made me laugh. I've already consulted a lawyer. You'll be hearing from them soon. Oh, and Ethan and Clara fully support the divorce. John's protests were cut short by the arrival of his mistress, Jessica, confident and unapologetic. She announced, John, I'll pay everything, alimony, child support, the hospital bills, if you divorce her and marry me. John, greedy and desperate, agreed, but before the ink could dry on their twisted arrangement, Jessica revealed her true identity, the granddaughter of a powerful crime boss. John's face turned ashen as men in black suits entered the room. Jessica smiled sweetly. Welcome to the family business, John. A month later, my divorce was finalized. Jessica paid every penny of John's debts. True to her word, John, now bound to Jessica and her dangerous world, had lost everything. As for me, I found peace with my children. Clara recovered fully, and Ethan grew into a strong, supportive young man. My handmade business flourished, and I promised myself that one day, I'd take my children on a well-deserved vacation to celebrate the new life we had built together.
Hi, I'm Emily Parker, and this is the story of how my perfect sister's dream wedding turned into a nightmare. Not because I wanted revenge, but because sometimes the truth refuses to stay buried. I was adopted by the Parkers when I was 6 months old. My parents, especially my dad, James Parker, always made sure I never felt different from my biological sister Kate, who was born 2 years after they adopted me. At least that's what I thought for 28 years. Dad's company, Parker Innovation Labs, was his pride and joy, a small research and development firm that created custom solutions for manufacturing companies. I grew up watching him pour his heart into it, spending late nights in his home office reviewing projects and proposals. While Kate excelled in dance recitals and beauty pageants, I inherited Dad's passion for innovation. I spent my summers interning at the company, learning every aspect of the business. After getting my engineering degree, I joined full-time as a project manager. That was 8 years ago. Since then, I'd worked my way up to Chief Innovation Officer, helping transform our small family business into an industry leader worth over $100 million. Kate, meanwhile, had become a successful social media influencer, posting about luxury lifestyle and relationship advice. The problem started when Kate got engaged to Thomas Bradford IEI, heir to Bradford Technologies, one of our biggest competitors. This merger of families will be perfect for business, Mom gushed during Kate's engagement party at our family estate. The champagne was flowing, and everyone who was anyone in the tech industry had been invited. I should have seen the signs earlier, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, the strange looks from board members, the way Dad had been avoiding one-on-one meetings with me for weeks. Kate clanked her crystal champagne flute, gathering everyone's attention. She stood on the mansion's grand staircase, her designer dress sparkling under the chandelier lights. Thomas stood beside her, looking every bit the proud future CEO he was being groomed to be. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our engagement," Kate beamed. "But there's something else we need to address tonight." My stomach dropped as her eyes found me in the crowd. "Emily, dear sister," her voice dripped with false concern. "We need to talk about the money." The room fell silent. I clutched my glass tighter. "What money?" "The $2 million that's missing from the company accounts." She paused for dramatic effect. "The money you've been embezzling for the past year." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Whispers erupted around the room. I looked to Dad for support, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "What are you talking about?" I managed to say. "I would never." "We have proof," Thomas interrupted, pulling out a folder. "Financial records showing systematic theft through a series of cleverly hidden transactions, all traced back to your personal accounts." I felt the room spinning. "Dad, you know I would never steal from the company. Everything I've done has been for." "Save it," Kate snapped. "You're just the adopted one, trying to steal what rightfully belongs to the real Parker family. It's time to pay it all back." The silence that followed her words was deafening. I waited for Dad to defend me, to say something, anything. Instead, he slowly nodded. "The evidence is quite clear, Emily," he said quietly. "I think it would be best if you resigned immediately. We won't press charges if you return the money." In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. 28 years of love and belonging crumbled under the weight of one accusation. I set my glass down carefully on a nearby table. "You want me to resign? Fine, I quit. But you should check those financial records more carefully before you make accusations." I walked out of the party with my head held high, ignoring the whispers and stares. As I reached my car, I heard Kate's voice ring out from the doorway. "Don't forget to return your company laptop and phone. We wouldn't want you deleting any evidence." I smiled despite the tears threatening to fall. My sister had always been so focused on appearances that she never bothered to learn how the company actually worked. She had no idea that for the past 3 years I'd been documenting everything. That night, as I sat in my home office, I began implementing the contingency plan I created but hoped never to use. Years of watching other family businesses implode had taught me to always be prepared for betrayal. I pulled out my personal laptop and accessed a secure server that Kate and Thomas didn't know existed. Every email, every transaction, every piece of evidence showing who had really been stealing from the company. It was all there, waiting to be revealed. Kate's wedding was in a week. She planned an extravagant ceremony at the city's most exclusive venue, with over 500 guests, including every major player in the tech industry. She'd spent months ensuring it would be the social event of the year. Little did she know, I had my own plans for her special day. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's future. It's about revealing the truth about their past. As I prepared for bed that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Kate. "Don't even think about coming to the wedding. Security has your photo." I replied with a simple smiley face emoji. She had no idea that I didn't need an invitation to crash her perfect day. After all, I designed the venue's security system myself. The next 7 days would change everything. But first, I had some calls to make. The morning of Kate's wedding dawned bright and clear. While she was probably getting her hair and makeup done at the Peninsula Hotel's presidential suite, I was in my home office making final preparations. The last week had been busy. I'd reached out to key industry contacts, set up meetings with the SEC, and gathered irrefutable evidence of what had really been happening at Parker Innovation Labs. But my most important call had been to someone Kate had completely forgotten about: our company's original programmer, old Joe. Joe had worked for Dad since the beginning, creating our core software systems. Kate and Thomas thought he'd retired 6 months ago. They didn't know he still maintained backdoor access to all company servers at my request. "Got everything?" I texted Joe at 9 a.m., all downloaded and verified. He replied, "They never changed the master passwords. Amateurs." I smiled, thinking of Kate's face when she realized her clever financial tricks weren't so clever after all. The money she accused me of stealing, every penny could be traced back to offshore accounts belonging to her fiance's family. At precisely 2 p.m., I parked my car 2 blocks from the St. Regis Hotel. The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom. Security was tight. Kate had made sure of that. But she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'd installed the hotel's entire security infrastructure 3 years ago through Parker Innovation Labs. I walked through the service entrance, nodding to the kitchen staff who recognized me from the system installation. My fingerprints still worked on the biometric locks, another oversight. I made my way to the control room, where my old friend Marcus was working security. "Emily?" He looked surprised. "They said you were banned." I handed him a USB drive. "Marcus, remember when I saved your job last year after that breach? I need a favor." 20 minutes later, I was settled in the ballroom's upper control booth. Below, guests were arriving, the who's who of the tech industry, all dressed in their finest. Mom was greeting people, wearing an expensive new dress. Dad stood with Thomas's parents, probably discussing the merger they'd announced yesterday. The merger that would save Bradford Technologies from bankruptcy, using Parker Innovation Labs' money. My money. The money Kate accused me of stealing. At 3:55 p.m., Kate made her entrance for photos. She looked stunning in her designer gown, beaming as cameras flashed. Thomas waited at the altar, looking every bit the proud groom. I waited until the ceremony began, until the minister asked if anyone had any objections. That's when I activated Joe's program. The ballroom's lights dimmed. The massive screens meant for wedding photos came to life. And there, in high definition, began playing a presentation I titled "The Truth About the Parker Family Fortune." Financial records, emails, secret meetings, every corrupt dealing, every stolen dollar, every lie, displayed for all to see. Kate's face went from confusion to horror as she watched proof of her fiance's embezzlement scheme unfold on screen. "Turn it off," Thomas shouted, but the hotel's systems weren't responding to anyone but me. Then came the recording, a conversation between Kate and Thomas from 3 months ago. "Once we frame Emily for the missing money, Dad will have to give me control of the company." Kate's voice filled the ballroom. "The adopted brat never deserved it anyway. And once we merge the companies," Thomas replied, "we can sell off Parker's assets to cover Bradford's debts. Your father will never know what hit him." The screen switched to security footage of them doctoring financial records in Thomas's office, carefully cracking the trail that would lead to me. The ballroom erupted in chaos. I emerged from the control booth, walking calmly down the main aisle. Kate stood frozen in her white dress, mascara running down her cheeks. "Security," she screamed when she saw me. "They work for me," I said quietly, "or rather, they work for Parker Innovation Labs' security division, which I built from the ground up." Dad stepped forward, his face ashen. "Emily, Save it," I cut him off. "Check your email. You'll find copies of everything you just saw, plus documentation of every innovation and client relationship I brought to the company. My resignation terms are attached. You have 1 hour to accept them." "You're bluffing," Thomas snarled. "You've got nothing." I smiled. "The SEC disagrees. They're very interested in Bradford Technologies' creative accounting, as are your shareholders." I nodded towards several pale-faced board members in the crowd. "Oh, and Kate, you were right about one thing. I'm not a real Parker. I'm better. I built that company into what it is today, while you were busy taking selfies and plotting theft." Mom tried to approach me, but I held up my hand. "My terms are simple. I take 51% ownership of Parker Innovation Labs, effective immediately. Kate and Thomas are banned from any involvement in the company. And Dad, you can keep your position as figurehead CEO, but your voting rights go to me. And if we refuse," Kate's voice shook, "then I release everything to the media. Parker Innovation Labs might survive the scandal. Bradford Technologies won't." I turned to the shocked guests. "I suggest you all go home. I don't think there's going to be a wedding today." The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, documents, and tears. By midnight, I owned controlling interest in the company I'd helped build. Bradford Technologies stock was in freefall, and Kate's perfect wedding had become the scandal of the year. 1 week later, I sat in my new office, formerly Dad's, reviewing acquisition proposals for what remained of Bradford Technologies. A knock at the door interrupted my work. It was Dad, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I should have believed in you," he said quietly. "Yes, you should have. Can we ever fix this?" I thought about it. Maybe. Not as father and daughter, you lost that right at the engagement party. But as business partners, we'll see. You taught me my first lesson about innovation. Sometimes you have to tear something down completely before you can build it back better. He nodded sadly and left. I turned back to my window, looking out at the city skyline. My phone buzzed. A text from Kate. "I'm sorry, I was wrong about everything." I didn't reply. Some apologies come too late. They say success is the best revenge, but I disagree. The best revenge is forcing people to face their own lies. Kate wanted a wedding that everyone would remember. Well, she got her wish, just not in the way she planned. As for me, I'm still the same person who loves innovation and building things. The only difference is now everyone knows what I'm capable of, and no one will ever call me just the adopted one again. I never intended to hide my success. Growing up in a modest Boston family, I learned early on that humility and perseverance mattered more than status. My father, a mechanic, would return home with grease-stained hands and a weary smile, while my mother worked back-to-back shifts as a nurse, determined to put me through college. Emily, she'd often say, success isn't measured by what you own, it's defined by who you are. Her words stayed with me. By 23, I had started a tech consulting firm in my garage. 2 years later, it had grown into MTech Solutions, now worth over $200 million. Yet, I kept a low profile, preferring the quiet satisfaction of working behind the scenes. Then I met Michael. Our paths crossed at a neighborhood coffee shop. I was absorbed in reviewing contracts, dressed in my usual jeans and sweater, when he accidentally knocked over my coffee. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," he exclaimed, fumbling to save my papers. I couldn't help but laugh. "It's fine," I reassured him, even though those documents were acquisition agreements worth millions. His genuine panic was oddly charming. "Let me make it up to you," he insisted. "I'm Michael, by the way." "Emily," I said, smiling. "And sure, I'll take you up on that coffee." That coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into a relationship. Michael was unlike anyone I'd ever met, kind, down to earth, and a high school teacher who genuinely loved his job. He never asked about my wealth, mainly because he didn't know about it. I told him I worked as an executive assistant at MTech Solutions. It wasn't entirely untrue. I did oversee administrative tasks, though as the company's owner, not an assistant. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. Things were perfect until I met his mother, Victoria. Victoria Patterson was the picture of social ambition. Her home was filled with imitation designer goods, and her conversations revolved around imaginary connections to high society. From the start, she disapproved of me. "A secretary?" she asked during our first dinner, her tone sharp. "Michael, darling, wasn't there a surgeon's daughter I introduced you to?" "Mom," Michael said, clearly annoyed, but she pressed on. "I just think, given our family status, you should aim higher. The Pattersons have always married well." The irony wasn't lost on me. Michael had already shared the truth of their middle-class life, propped up by credit card debt and appearances. "I like my job," I replied simply. "It's fulfilling." Victoria sniffed dismissively. "Well, someone has to do those things, I suppose." Her passive-aggressive remarks became a fixture of family gatherings. At Christmas, while others received thoughtful gifts, I got a plain office planner. "For keeping your boss's schedule," she said with a smirk. Michael often apologized privately but never confronted her outright. I understood. Family dynamics can be tricky. Then came the announcement that changed everything. One Sunday dinner, Victoria stormed into the room, brandishing a newspaper. "MTech Solutions is looking for a new CEO. This is my chance." I nearly choked on my wine. While it was true we were seeking a CEO, the search was highly selective. "You're applying?" Michael asked, visibly surprised. "Of course. After 20 years in middle management, it's time I moved into the big leagues," she declared, turning to me. "Emily, put in a good word for me, would you? Though I doubt your recommendation carries much weight." I maintained a neutral expression. "I'll see what I can do." "Don't bother," she said with a wave. "I've already called in favors. The board will be impressed by my credentials." Little did she know, I was the board. The following week, Victoria arrived at MTech Solutions for her interview, dressed in an over-the-top suit. I watched from my private office as she loudly proclaimed her qualifications in the lobby. "Mrs. Patterson," my assistant called. "The board is ready for you." Victoria straightened her posture and marched into the conference room. She froze the moment she saw me seated at the head of the table, flanked by board members. "Emily," she sputtered. "What are you doing here?" "Running my company," I said evenly. "Please have a seat." Her face paled as the realization hit. This can't be. "It is," one board member confirmed. "Ms. Walker is our founder and majority shareholder." Victoria's carefully curated facade began to crumble. She stumbled into a chair as I opened her application file. "Let's discuss your qualifications," I said, my tone all business. Her resume was riddled with embellishments, and I questioned each one. Her fabricated achievements and supposed connections unraveled quickly under scrutiny. "I think we're done here," I concluded. "Your application is disqualified due to misrepresentation." "You can't do this," she cried. "This is personal." "No, it's professional," I replied. "But since you brought up personal matters, yes, I've endured your insults and condescension for months. This isn't revenge, Victoria. It's accountability." She stormed out, muttering threats about exposing me to Michael. "Go ahead," I thought, already reaching for my phone. It was time Michael knew the truth. "Mom just called me crying," Michael said as he walked into my office, his face a mixture of confusion and concern. "She said you're her boss? Emily, what's going on?" I motioned for him to sit down, taking a deep breath. "Michael, there's a lot I need to explain. I wasn't completely honest about who I am. I didn't want to complicate things between us, but now it's unavoidable. Can I show you something?" Minutes later, Michael stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows in my office, his eyes scanning the breathtaking view of the city and the nameplate on my desk, Emily Walker, founder and CEO. He turned to the wall of awards and newspaper articles featuring my company, MTech Solutions. "So, you're not a secretary," he said, his voice measured. "No, I'm not," I admitted, standing beside him. "I founded MTech when I was 23. The company your mom mocked me for working at? I built it from the ground up." He looked at me, hurt flashing in his eyes. "Why would you hide something like this? Why lie?" "I wanted someone to see me, not my bank account," I said. "Do you know how many people have tried to get close to me because of my money or status? I wanted to experience love for who I am, not for what I own." Michael sighed, his expression softening. "I understand that, but you let my mother treat you horribly. You could have stopped this months ago." "And what would that have accomplished?" I asked. "Proving her obsession with status, right? That wealth is what defines someone's value." I didn't want to play her game. Michael ran a hand through his hair. "You're right. I should have defended you. I failed you there." Before I could respond, the office door burst open, and Victoria stormed in, dragging her husband George behind her. Her face was red with fury. "There she is, the liar, the manipulator," she screeched. George, ever the quiet observer, stepped forward. "Emily, this feels inappropriate. Using your position to reject Victoria over personal disagreements." "I recorded the entire interview," I said, cutting him off. With the press of a button, Victoria's stumbling responses played over the speaker. "This wasn't personal. Your wife lied on her application and misrepresented her qualifications. The board made their decision based on facts." Victoria's face twisted with rage. "You think you've won? Just wait until everyone hears about this. The so-called genius CEO who pretended to be a secretary just to trick her way into our family." "Mom, stop," Michael's voice thundered, silencing the room. "Just stop. Do you hear yourself? You're humiliating all of us." "Humiliating? She's the liar here." Victoria spat. "No," Michael said firmly. "Emily lied about one thing, her job. You've lied about everything else. Our family status, your connections, your accomplishments. It's all been a facade, and I'm done enabling it." Victoria's mouth fell open, and George placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let's go, Victoria," he murmured. "This has gone too far. This isn't over," she hissed as he led her out. "You'll regret this, both of you." As the doors slammed behind them, silence filled the office. Michael turned to me, his face weary but resolute. "I'm sorry for everything my family's put you through, but I need to know, where do we go from here?" Before I could answer, my assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Walker, sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Patterson is in the lobby, causing a scene. Security is asking how to proceed." Michael and I exchanged a look. "We handle it together," he said. I pressed the intercom. Send security footage to my laptop and stand by. Only intervene if she disrupts operations. On the screen, we watched Victoria pacing the lobby, stopping employees to rant about me. Most ignored her, some rolling their eyes. But then she pulled out her phone. "She's stealing clients," Victoria shouted, waving the phone in the air. "I have proof right here. Financial documents from Patterson Insurance." My blood ran cold. "Those are confidential." "How did she get them?" Michael's face paled. "She works in middle management at Patterson. She must have accessed the files." I was already dialing. "Mr. Patterson, this is Emily Walker. Your employee, Victoria Patterson, is in my lobby threatening to expose confidential client information." "Yes, I'll hold." Victoria's voice blared over the feed. "I'll ruin her. She's been poaching our best clients." A sharp voice cut through the chaos on the screen. Victoria Patterson. A poised woman in a suit approached, flanked by two men. "I'm Susan Chen, legal counsel for Patterson Insurance. You're hereby suspended pending investigation for violation of your non-disclosure agreement and attempted corporate espionage." Victoria stumbled back. "No, you don't understand." "We understand perfectly," Susan said coldly. "Your access to confidential files has been monitored for weeks. This public outburst only confirmed our suspicions." Michael watched in stunned silence as his mother was escorted away, her protests growing fainter. He turned to me. "Emily, I didn't know she was capable of this." "It's not your fault," I said gently, "but we need to address this openly, with your family, with mine, and with ourselves." Michael nodded, his voice steady. "Together." As security led a stunned Victoria out of the building, Michael turned to me, his brow furrowed. "You knew about her job performance?" "I found out during the merger discussions," I admitted. "I plan to help her transition into a role better suited to her skills. That's part of why I kept my identity hidden. I needed to fully understand the situation before making decisions that would impact your family." Mr. Patterson, standing nearby, shook his head with a faint smile. "Always thinking of others, Emily. It's one of the reasons I agreed to the merger in the first place." He straightened his jacket and added, "Don't worry about Victoria. We'll handle the legal aspects with discretion for Michael's sake." After he left, silence settled in the office. Michael sat across from me, staring out the window, lost in thought. "I need some time," he said at last. "This is a lot." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Take all the time you need." At the door, he paused, looking back at me. "For what it's worth, I fell in love with Emily the secretary. Knowing you're Emily the CEO doesn't change that. It just means I have more to learn about you." After he left, I remained at my desk, watching the city lights flicker on as night fell. My phone buzzed. A message from George, Michael's father. "Victoria's home, devastated. She knows what she's lost. When you're ready, we should talk. All of us. Family shouldn't end like this." The week that followed, I buried myself in work, giving Michael and his family the space they needed. Meanwhile, the media caught wind of Victoria's public meltdown. Corporate espionage involving two merging companies was too scandalous to ignore. Fortunately, both companies' PR teams managed to keep the damage under control. One late evening, as I was reviewing merger documents, my assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Walker, the Patterson family is here to see you." They entered together, George leading with calm authority, Michael, his expression unreadable, and finally Victoria, her usual confidence replaced by a tentative, vulnerable air. She wore simple business attire, a stark contrast to her usual designer wardrobe. "Emily," George began, his tone measured, "we need to talk. All of us." Victoria stepped forward, wringing her hands. "I've been in therapy this past week, intensive sessions. Losing the promotion, it broke me. Everything I built my identity around, my importance, my connections, it all crumbled." "You tried to hold on by grabbing more," I said quietly. She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "When I saw the CEO posting, I convinced myself I deserved it, that everyone else had been holding me back. Then learning the truth about you, it shattered what little I had left." "Mom," Michael said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder, "there's more you need to tell her." Victoria took a shaky breath. "I've struggled for years. Shopping addiction, fabricating stories about our family's status. It all started when George's business hit trouble a decade ago. Instead of facing reality, I created a fantasy. It felt easier than admitting we weren't who I pretended us to be. George spoke up, his voice heavy with regret. And I enabled it. I thought keeping up appearances would keep us afloat. But it only made things worse. The merger, is it still happening? I nodded. Yes. Victoria's actions hurt both companies, but they don't erase 2 decades of service. The merger includes a retirement package for long-term employees. It's hers if she wants it. Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. After everything I've done? Everyone deserves a second chance, I said. But there are conditions. Continued therapy, working with HR on a transition plan, and most importantly, honesty with yourself and others. Victoria broke down, her carefully constructed walls finally crumbling. I'm sorry, Emily, for everything. For how I treated you, the things I said. Michael moved to my side and took my hand. We've all learned something, he said. Mom about honesty, Dad about enabling, me about standing up for what's right, and Emily about trusting people with the truth, I finished, moving forward. 2 months later, Victoria retired quietly. The merger proceeded smoothly, and she found new purpose volunteering at a financial literacy program, helping others avoid the mistakes she'd made. At our wedding the following spring, she gave a heartfelt speech that left few dry eyes. A year ago, I thought status and appearances were everything, but my daughter-in-law taught me that true worth lies in how you treat others. Emily, thank you for giving our family a second chance, not because you're a CEO, but because you're a compassionate human being. Michael squeezed my hand under the table. We had rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of truth, moving past lies and pretenses. Looking around, I saw our merged family, George chatting with my father about business, Victoria helping my mother arrange flowers, our employees meeting with relatives. Success, I realized, meant nothing without people to share it with. Happy, Michael whispered. Very, I replied with a grin. Though I do miss that secretary desk sometimes. He laughed. Well, you did say your assistant's going on maternity leave. Don't tempt me, I teased. I might just go undercover again. Victoria overheard and joined our laughter, genuine this time, free from pretense. She'd found something far more valuable than status. Peace with who she truly was. As the celebration continued, I thought back to that first accidental coffee spill. It had led to this moment, proving that sometimes life's biggest blessings come disguised as chaos. Looking around at the people I loved, I knew success wasn't measured in dollars or titles. It was measured in second chances, hard truths, and the courage to be authentically yourself.